Born in the backwoods.
Born in the backwoods.
Raised by a bear.
Raised by a bear.
Got cast iron nuts.
Got cast iron nuts.
And 2 coats of hair.
And 2 coats of hair.
Got a stainless steel dick.
Got a stainless steel dick.
Yeah, it's a mean prick.
Yeah, mean prick.
I'm a mean motherfucker.
I'm a mean motherfucker.
Who don't take no shit.
I don't take no shit.
Originally, a couple minutes ago, we were talking about psychedelics and how your body naturally produces DMT,
Right.
dimethyltryptamine, and it comes out of your pineal gland.
Right.
The Eye of Horus, I think, is the same shape as
The pineal gland. Yes.
And I have my own views about it on why I think what that has to do with us as people
There's
and animals and stuff.
a scientist, I think his name is John Dean, not to be confused with John D., who was actually the first 007. He was,
didn't know that.
He was
with like MI6
Queen
or something?
Elizabeth's magician.
I didn't know that.
John D. Yeah, he's a character in history. But John Dean believes that it's the DMT that, well, we know that it's the DMT secreted through the serotonin and stuff that allows us to dream. And it's through the use of DMT that people do see the visions. And he believes that it's the DMT in our system that allows us, when you do LSD or any of the other hallucinogens, allows you to see the visions. So DMT is very fundamental. And again, it's a naturally occurring in your body, as is THC. You know, when they test you for THC, they don't test you for presence. They test you for a percentage or a level.
Right.
So they can tell if it's higher than your base level, because all of our bodies contain it. I mean, it's been naturally used for thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Do you think most people should try it, or like
I think
at least give it a try?
I think so. Again, you know, there will be obviously people that would argue with that or debate that.
Right.
But beings they're harmless. It's not like you smoke a joint and you're going to be addicted, you know, reefer madness. You're going to be addicted to
You
weed.
saw the poster back there.
No, I didn't.
Oh, look behind you.
Oh, right on. Yeah. You know, it's
the
not
fear mongering with that was
none of
just
this,
amazing.
none of it, whether it's mushrooms or DMT or any of these other psychogenic substances they're not addictive. So, you know, trying it, you know.
Do you think it's a doorway to the next life, or like if you here's my idea of what I think DMT has to do with humans, our lives, and stuff like that. Most people, when they get injured really hard, or they're about to die, or they have a near-death experience, and they go into shock, and like all these chemicals get released out of their body and their
Yep.
brain, and they, oh my goodness, oh Dios mío, I saw the Mother
saw
Mary.
God and met
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
I met God, and I saw
I don't
this, that,
doubt
and the
they
other.
do.
Right.
I mean, I would never say that you don't, but I think it's a vehicle for that.
Do you think
talk to
it's
people
their
who've done-
version of what they think reality is, what
Well-
religion is to them?
Of course, because we all
It's their perspective of
if you understand the Hermetic principles, the first Hermetic principle is the universe is mental. Everything is a mental construct. Whether, you know, the argument of flat Earth, is the Earth flat or is it spherical? I believe that if we all believe that the Earth is flat, the Earth's going to be flat. If we all believe it's spherical, it's going to be spherical. You know, it's what. Honestly, I believe we live in a holographic universe. If you
a
look
simulation.
whether you want to call it a simulation or not, I believe that it's all a consciousness. It's what you believe can manifest. I mean, Jesus even said that in the Bible. Keep your thoughts captive, because they will manifest. If you keep saying, well, I'm always going to be poor, guess what? You're always going to be poor.
Yeah.
If, you know, with my mental issues that I deal with. if I dwell on them and say, well, I've got a brain injury, and guess what? You got a brain injury. If whatever you dwell on will be manifest in your life, because, frequency and energy, it's all frequency and energy.
Do you think that's why a lot of stuff seems like it's so out of whack? Because everybody's going, oh, just wait till I tell you all my things that I have wrong with me. I'm ADHD and I'm autistic and I'm like, and everybody's got
we
like
got to
this
categorize. We got to
Exactly.
categorize, and it's with everything in life is like that. And once we start getting away from that, read the Kabbalion. It was a book. It's about 3 hours long. You can get it on YouTube. They don't use the word God. Like in Tao, they said, if you can call this the Tao, it's not the Tao, because the Tao is ineffable. God is ineffable. You can't say what he is, what he isn't, what he looks like. He's ineffable. You can't, it's undescribable. So they call it the All, who's the creator who set this all in motion. And, people are going to be saying, oh, this guy's crazy. And, well, but if you really do some objective research and get past your bugaboos and your little preconceived ideas and your cognitive biases, and you look into this, like this, what we're going to do here in a few minutes is talk about Freemasonry. I was an anti-Mason for the majority of my life until I was entertaining the whole flat Earth thing, and they are totally anti-Mason. And I was talking to a buddy of mine about, this about Freemasons and that about Freemasons. And he's like, what's wrong with Freemasons? And I started, peeling off all
Giving
this.
a spiel.
Oh, yeah, all this worshiping Lucifer and all these different things. And he goes, what are you talking about? And I said, well, but Don, da. And he's like, Jason, he said, that's all bullshit. And I said, what do you mean? He says, I'm a Freemason. I'm like, oh my God, Don, how can you be a Freemason? And we, he's like, it's not what you think. I said, you're my friend. And he's kind of my got your six buddy, which any veteran knows what that really means. He's got my back. I mean, he calls me sometimes at least once a day, checks up on me. He was what the Marine Corps calls a unicorn. He was a CW05. There are so few of them, they call him a unicorn. He's a character. I mean, he's like 6'6". He's a big man. I mean, his hands are like softball gloves. I mean, he's a big man. And he's really helped me out a lot. And
Nice.
so it took me about 3 years of, trying to connect all these conspiracies. And I don't like to use the word conspiracy because people come back and say, well, that's a word the conspiracy theorist was a word contrived by the CIA for the JFK assassination. Well, people do conspire, okay?
Right.
People conspire to make people believe a certain narrative. So I went to try and connect all these conspiracies, and I couldn't.
Do you think it's a group of people creating their own conspiracies, or do you think it's a group of people that all have an understood idea of what the objective is? Like, we're not going to conspire and talk about what we're going to do to take over the world, but we all understand what the
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Do you
exactly.
think it's something like
and
that?
I think it's, in a lot of the Christian churches, they're very much anti-Masonic. They say you can't be a Christian and a Mason. Well, there's nothing in Freemasonry which conflicts with Christianity or the Bible. For one, it's not a religion. It's a fraternity. And people that in the audience are going to think, yeah, he's full of shit. It's a religion. They worship Lucifer. It's not. It's a fraternity. Religion and politics are actually topics that are forbidden to be spoken of in lodge because of the divisive nature. No two people are going to agree on politics. No two people are going to agree on religion. And it drives wedges between people when we're trying to bring people together into a brotherhood, into a family. Each lodge is like a family. They have their own particular way of things.
Right.
You know, if you bring a guy in and he just, we do what we call an investigation. We investigate you because we're inviting you into our family, and we want to know if you're going to be a good fit. You know, if, you know, I'm the master of the lodge in Greeley, Colorado, small town. I mean, if you come in there and you've got blue or purple hair and all that stuff, you're not probably going to feel as comfortable in there with these older men as you would in maybe another lodge where there's younger people. You know, some guy, I mean, there's guys in these lodges got gauges, and, you know, we've all got, most of us all have tattoos, and,
Right.
and, you know, we lived a life before this.
And from what you said last time we spoke, it's kind of everybody's at a different level, and it doesn't matter what your occupation is.
Well, exactly.
You could
there's stories where when Roosevelt was president, he was a very active Freemason, and during his presidency, his gardener was actually the master of their lodge. So
wow.
we all say, you know, the working tools are the plumb, which today we have the plumb and level are all in one unit. You got a horizontal bubble and a vertical bubble, but they used to use what's called the plumb, the level, and the square. We're all we act on the level, which means everybody is equal.
He's on the level. Isn't
Everybody
that a
is
saying?
on the level. Yes.
Gotcha.
And that's a Masonic saying, because whether you're the president or you're a trash collector, when you're in the lodge, everybody is equal. And as Masons, it extends outside the lodge. That's just, you look at our Constitution, was written on Masonic principles. You know, everybody is equal. Now, at the time, they still dealt with slavery and some of the other things that man is known for being, you know, not so kind.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's every group, every civilization. Like
all the way
this
back.
is just the most recent version of that.
Exactly.
And that's something that drives me crazy.
And it's actually one of the shortest periods of slavery. If slavery exists today,
Yeah.
I mean,
every single race has been enslaved. Every single group of people has enslaved.
exactly.
And this is just the most recent version of that.
And that's why it's so fresh in our minds.
Exactly. That's why it's able to be used to silence people. And hey, you
Exactly.
have an idea I don't agree with, so F
You're
you.
a racist.
Exactly.
Or you're a bigot, or you're a homophobe.
I don't want to
or-
hear your opinion, you cisgendered white male.
Exactly. It's a way of shutting people down.
Yeah.
If I can disparage you and make you look less, then that gives me that moral superiority, or that moral high ground.
No.
And-
Before we get too deep into the Freemason stuff, could you introduce yourself? Tell people who
Sure.
you are.
My
what
name
you
is
do?
Jason Burke. As we were talking about Freemasonry, I am the Worshipful Master of the Masonic Lodge in Greeley, Colorado, Century 190. And my coming to Freemasonry is built upon my history as a veteran, what happened to me, where I was at. I mean, when I came in, I was, as we have what we call the rough ashlar and the smooth ashlar. One's a rough stone that was taken raw from the quarry, and the finished ashlar is what's ready to be used in the building. Well, I was the epitome of a rough ashlar. When I came in, due to my experiences and some things that happened to me through the VA, and I'm not trying to down the VA because they have been good to me.
No, yeah.
They've
If
been
you
really
can
good to me.
touch on that,
You know?
when you joined and your not opinion, but your your time in the
experience.
military, your experience in the military, and and
my
leaving.
experiences in the military. Technically, my title was, as when I got out, was Nuclear Power Plant Components Welder. I went through the Navy's welding school, all 3 phases, and came out as a nuclear power plant welder.
When'd you join?
I joined in 1979.
Nice.
So I might look like a Vietnam vet, but I'm not. You know, I look a little older. I was
You
actually,
you look wiser when you become a Freemason.
Well, exactly. We
hair
know all the
turns
secrets of
gray.
the universe.
Yeah.
Not.
So you joined in 79.
I joined in 79. In ironic fashion, I went through school as I wanted to be an equipment operator, and they told me it's full. I said, well, give me something with welding. And so I ended up with what they call a hull maintenance technician. And we dealt with welding, plumbing, soldering, carpentry, damage control, nuclear, biological, chemical warfare. They just lumped a bunch of things into one rating. They combined the damage control rate and the ship fitter metal and pipe rate and the carpenter's rate into one rating. And so we were trained in all of that. I went to school in Philadelphia in 1979.
Oh, nice. I got family out in Philly.
Philly's a unique town.
Yeah.
A unique town, particularly around the naval station.
There's a
The
lot
old
of
naval
stuff
yard.
that could happen out there.
Yeah. And
How was that time in the Navy as a welder?
actually, anything you do in the military is going to have its ups and downs. Once I went through nuke school, I didn't realize at the time when I went, I just wanted to be a high pressure, which they call a 4955 NEC or Navy Educational Code, which meant I wanted to be a high pressure welder, so that because I had been a ship fitter all this time and I was allowed to tack things together, but I wanted to do the welding.
Right.
And so I went through the first two. They have 3 phases, 4954, 4955, 4956. You have what they call the I'm not even losing the concept, the thought. The basic welder, every ship technically has a billet for a general purpose welder. Then you got the 55, which is high pressure, and 56, which they call a nuke. So I went through the first 2 phases. I got my 55 code, and I was back in the ship fitter shop, and the chief of the weld shop was coming through our shop. You had to go through our shop, the ship fitter shop, to get to the weld shop. And he says, "Hey, Jason," he said, "we just got an opening in 028, which is 56 school. You want to go back?" I'm thinking, another 16 weeks of school on the Navy? Yeah. Well, what it does is it locks you in. You're going to be either on a submarine tender, you're going to be at a submarine base. If you go to a shore station, you're going to be welding boiler tubes, things like that. So I didn't realize that at the time. And that's one of the reasons I did get out, is because I didn't want to, I want to do something different for a while. I spent, 2 or 3 years welding on submarine reactors and submarine reactor support systems, spending, 12 hours a day in a bilge on a submarine with, we were doing TIG welding. Someone else is running your foot pedal while you're using your both hands,
Oh, man.
welding in a mirror and stuff that has to be x-rayed. And, you can't make a mistake. This is, when you're working on nuclear systems, for one, you can't make a mistake. And for two, it's because of the nature of submarines and what, they go under the water and the pressures and all these things. There's no room for a mistake.
A lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure.
Pun intended.
Yes, exactly. And I just got to the point where I wanted to take a break from it. And they wanted to send me to sub base Pearl Harbor. Well, I didn't want to go there because, I had a wife and 2 young kids, and most of the guys that go to sub base Pearl Harbor, you end up in shift work, working 12 on, 12 off for 9-10 months out of the year. I didn't want to subject my family to that.
Right.
I said, why don't you send me over to Coronado and let me work on the small boats? I mean, it's part of our rating, small boat repair. No, we can't do that. I said, well, send me to the base gym. Let me check out basketballs for 6 months. Oh, we can't do that. And it's like, well, I'm going to get out there.
Kick rocks.
Exactly. Well, that's not a way. I said, well, that's no way to be. I said, well, I look at it like this. If I don't like what I'm doing, I'm going to have a bad attitude, and it's going to reflect on me, and it's going to reflect on you. I'm not going to be doing a good job. So, I was 30, 31. I figured it's easier to get out and start over in the civilian world at 30 than it is at 40.
Yeah.
And so
How long did you spend in?
I was in for 10 active, 12 for pay.
Nice.
And so that's that. And, you know, after I got back out of school, I was up for E6. And the test was like in a couple of days. And I told the chief, I said, I need a special eval to take the E6 exam for petty officer first class. And he's like, well, you should have service school do that for you. I said, you know good well they can't do that. It has to be your permanent command. Your primary command has to write your eval. Well, he copped an attitude. The whole time I was in, I got 3 6s, 3 8s, 4 O's on my evals. He gave me 3 2s, which were unwarranted. I mean, I was a 4-0 sailor. You know, I was always, you know, my uniforms were ironed every day. You know, I was never late. I did my job. Everything was. I mean, I never failed a test. I mean, I come out of nuke school as the honorman. That sounds like a lot more than it really is, but it's. You know, I went through gas for engineering school, and as a petty officer, I went through as an E5. You can be what they call a gas-free petty officer, but you need to be an E7 to be a gas-free engineer, which the gas-free engineer can check a space. Like if there's a void and they need work done in that void, you can check it for toxic gases, flammable gases. Then you prescribe, you know, you need to run a, you know, positive ventilation or negative ventilation or both for X amount of hours. You need to wear such and such respirator or, you know, full face mask or whatever. And so I went through the school and I got the 3rd highest score in the class. I mean, I beat out most of the senior chiefs and master chiefs, the E8s and E9s.
Nice.
And so every time that they would put something in your service record, they would send a copy of it down to the shop, you know, so you could keep your own. Well, the skipper decided to make me a gas-free engineer, which meant I could do the actual checks on the spaces instead of rechecks. And I got cornered in the passageway by a senior chief, and he started chewing my ass. Well, what makes you think you can be a gas-free engineer? I said, what are you talking about? I said, I didn't do that. If you got a problem with that, you need to take it to the skipper. The skipper is the one that made me a gas-free engineer. I had no part in this. And so, you know, when I was doing things that I really was interested in, I excelled very well. And so, you know, his giving me 3-2 evals in the Navy, you get first increment, second increment, third increment, or select E and it's by the score on the test and by your evals. Well, I got the same score, not the same. We didn't score the same on all the categories, but the final score on the E6 exam, I had the same score with this other guy in the shop. He got first increment, I got select E because I had lower evals.
Oh, damn.
And I'm like, just because this guy has an attitude, he just cost me 6 months, my family, 6 months of E6 pay because he was being a petulant little child and had to do something he didn't want to do. And I thought, I don't like people having that much control over my life, you know.
That's the military.
Exactly. And, you know, that was wrong. And they did split at about that time, they split the HT rate back into HT and DC. So it opened up more billets. Well, when I was up for 7, they rated 3 E7 HTs out of all the Navy. That was both coasts.
Jeez.
And I'm like, I'm not going to be a forever E6. This shit ain't going to happen. And so I decided to get out. But
and you continued as a contractor after that?
I got out and came back to Colorado from San Diego. And, you know, I reverted to the next thing I knew, my old man was a contractor. So I started working as a contractor and a carpenter and started, you know, doing that as a business and, you know, by default. And, you know, when that slowed down, I'd go get a job welding and, you know, welding in the civilian world and welding in the military are
I can only imagine.
2 different things.
What was the biggest difference between those?
Well, in the military, when I was welding on reactors and sub stuff, there is no what we call an open joint, where you just bring the two materials together. You have an open joint and you fill that with what they call keyholing it in, because they flush the systems. On reactors, they can't flush them. So we either use an insert ring, a backing ring, or a chill ring.
That way there's no gap.
There's no gap.
It's not just that material in between that's
Right.
between nuclear material. And
so I never learned through them how to do these open root joints, which kind of hamstrung me for a lot of civilian work. Wouldn't
they prefer it not to have a gap for what they're doing? Or the specific work that you're doing, they're like, no, we want a gap.
Well, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, see, in like pipelining, they don't want any restrictions inside the pipe. So there's no backing ring in there.
So they want there to be kind of play, just a little bit of play?
Well, no. When they do the open root, you keyhole it in, so when you put the bead in, it looks the same on the inside as the outside.
Gotcha.
Then you put a hot pass, and then filler pass, and then your cover pass. So there's no restriction in the line. And, in the Navy, you'd have a backing ring in there or something, and that would cause a restriction or a flow, interruption of the flow. The Navy systems, they're completely different, the way they work it. Plus, they can't flush the systems, so you can't introduce any foreign material. When we would say do a valve, we would replace a valve. We would go in, and through the work package, you take the valve in, and you get ship's company, and they sign the package. This is just a controlled work package where they identify the valve. There's a number on it, a lot number, and that's matched with the package, and they sign that, and you check the flow direction to make sure you get the valve in correctly. They sign that. Then we would take a thin wheel on a die grinder, and we would cut the socket weld, we call blue lining, where you get down to where it just starts turning blue, so you don't cut through into the base metal of the pipe. And then we would break it loose. Well, as soon as you got it broke loose, then you would call the cleanliness inspector, and he would come down after you found him, and he would come in, and you would take your come-alongs, and you would pull the system apart, open it up, take the valve out, and drive a wooden plug in, or tape an aluminum cap over the end of it, or seal it up. So we call it FME, or foreign material exclusion, because you can't let any foreign material enter that system.
Right.
And then you would grind the flash off, and then you would put the valve in. Then they would come, the ship's company would come and inspect to make sure it was in the right direction. And
they were doing all this specifically in the military?
Yes, this is military.
Was it less standards in the civilian world in comparison?
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of hamstrung you?
Yeah. Well, it's not having that open root experience.
Gotcha.
Well, particularly welding pipe. Structural is another animal in itself.
Right.
But 90% of the pipe welding you do in a civilian community is all open root welding. Whether you're doing what they call a 6G, which is a weld on a 45 degree, which is mostly for like high pressure and steam. Pipelining, they do what they call a button, a branch, where you'll take two coupons, you weld them together, and then you'll take two pieces and make a T out of it, which, it's a lot of it is just see if you've got the skills.
Right.
And then the test in the civilian world is they'll cut coupons out and they bend them to see if the weld breaks. In the Navy, everything I did was all X-ray or UT ultrasonic tested. There could be no flaws in the weld. None. No.
Did that make it easier for you when you were having to do the civilian side of stuff?
Yeah, because once you got the open root down,
right.
A bend test, you got these guys saying, well, a bend test is more critical than an X-ray. Are you a lunatic? API 1104, which is a pipeline code, allows for a 1/4 inch in aggregate of porosity per inch of weld. In the military, on an X-ray, it can be 0. There is nothing allowed in your weld but weld.
Nice.
So, it's a lot more critical.
Do you think that because of the differences between your time in the Navy and the civilian world, did the military prepare you more for that transition into the civilian world, or do you think they kind of...
It did in a lot of senses, yes. Once, like I say, once I got the open route figured out and I got that going, then it was all gravy, you know, because the testing, even in your API or your other codes, the was it 11 B1? I don't even remember the code. I got the memory issues, but
I'm amazed you've remembered all the stuff you've remembered so far. Like the second I got out of the military, it's like everything just dumped out of my head.
Well,
because then I went into underwater welding, so then I had to put all that in there, and then the next thing I did, I dumped all that out.
Well, because I've been actively welding on and off
recently.
Oh yeah,
nice.
I have a mobile welding service where
Nice. What's the name of it?
Lariat Construction or Lariat Welding.
Hell yeah.
And you know, I'll MIG, TIG, stick, you know, any of the manual processes. You know, if you want me to weld your exhaust for your car, I can weld the exhaust for your car. You know, agriculture, I'll repair farm equipment in the field. You know, oil field. About a year ago, I did a re-entry where if a well isn't producing, they'll do what's called a P&A or a plug and abandon, where they'll dig a hole, they'll cut the pipe down, and they'll cap it off. Well, now they're going back into a lot of these wells because they're starting to produce again.
Nice.
And you do a re-entry where you cut the cap off and you put a section of a coupler in.
A new one.
And you raise it up, and then they'll put the BOP on top, which is a protection device. Yeah. And
tongue twister.
Yeah.
Hey, I bet you're loving that. And I think it's going to start kicking off.
Well, I'm hoping to. You know, if
Fingers
we get
crossed,
the oil,
knock on wood.
if we start pumping more oil, drilling more oil, and because even if you don't work in the oil fields, when the oil field slows down, those guys come in and take over all the other jobs.
Yeah.
And they'll undercut you.
Yeah.
You know, so it makes it hard. I've done a lot of work for a lot of sand and gravel companies, repairing equipment, you know, relining buckets, putting wear plates on, you know, the trench compactors, they look like big pounce wheels, and the bearings get wore out in them. So I'll cut those wheels off, pull them off, replace the bearings, weld them back on. You know, it's pretty lucrative. I mean,
it's hard to find good welders. So if you can show people your skills, It makes a world of difference.
Exactly. And, you know, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
You know, I've worked for one of the sand and gravel companies here in Colorado for, you know, 7 or 8 years now. And, you know, there's periods of time where they don't call me, but when they do, it's like, you know, we got this and we got to have it done now. And, you know, you're in the pit, you're in the yard, you know, it's rain, sleet, snow, you just do it.
Huh?
And so, you know, I just pull the truck up, roll it out, strike the arc, cut it apart, you know, put it back together.
Make that money.
Make that money, man. Stacking them dimes.
No, good. I'm really glad to hear that. And if you want, you can send me something to put at the end of this to boost your business up as well.
Absolutely.
That's definitely the goal, is helping vets with find work and
exactly. And that's, you know, another thing while we're talking about this, going to talk about Freemasonry, is how it helped me. You know, when I joined in 2017, I had a brain injury, and I have no short-term memory. And Freemasonry is based on what you can memorize, because as you go through each degree, you get a catechism or what we call a proficiency, and you have to memorize this. And in Lodge, you'll do a question and answer. They'll ask you a question, you give them the answer. It has to be word for word wrote, but in the proficiency, it's not just some random question. They'll ask you this question, you know, and you answer with the exact answer. Well, I struggled with it, and they said, well, you know, Jason will help you. You know, we'll work through this. And I'm thinking, how? Right. How are you going to help me memorize this stuff? And so instead of and I'll get some pushback maybe from, someone will tag on a thread, that's never allowed or anything like that. But they gave me a special dispensation where I did my proficiency in a committee. They took a past master, the standing master, and a proficient master mason, and we went in the preparation room, and they asked me questions for an hour on each of my 3 degrees as I went through. They figured out that whether I did or didn't know the information, and they committed together and they went and told the lodge, and the lodge brought me out and gave me the Omni Domini. Now you're an entered apprentice. You're entered. When I went through the fellow craft, now you're passed. And the day I did my master mason proficiency, I came in early before the installation, and they made me you're raised to a master mason. They said, now sit down here in this chair, and they made me the junior deacon of the lodge. We're in such a small lodge that, everybody needs to participate. So that's where I got really started. And, I've gone through, the junior deacon, the senior deacon, the junior warden, the senior warden, and the master. And because of the guy that was behind me as the senior warden decided he didn't want to be a mason anymore, our lodge is so small, there was no one to follow me up. There was no senior warden, so I ended up being the master again this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a lot of work.
Has it become easier over time with remembering a lot of these things?
Some of it has. I mean, there is still, memory work that I don't have, like the Masonic funeral. You're supposed to, memorize the Masonic funeral. I've worked on it and worked on it and worked on it. During ritual opening and closing lodges, read the way I've done that, memorize that is from the very first meeting when I started. I would just repeat to myself everything from when the master first said, "Brethren, be clothed," to the very last word he said, "Brother Junior Deacon, inform the Tyler." I would just repeat what everybody said for 3 years before I even started, 2.5 years before I even started through the chairs. And so I was able to memorize that way by immersion. Sitting at home reading it out of a book and trying to memorize it is a whole nother thing. And it just, for some reason, just stuff just doesn't stick in my memory with this issues I have with short-term memory, which have gotten better. I mean, it's through that impact Freemasonry has had through the memorization and the structure that it is, I was, like I said, the epitome of a rough ashlar when I came in.
Right.
And it's through our working tools, the 24-inch gauge and the common gavel we say is to break off the rough edges and make the ashlar, fitted for the purpose of being in the building of that building not made by hands, eternal in the heavens. This is all you're working on you. These are all allegorical terms for working on yourself. We say our aim is to make good men better. We say Freemasonry is a peculiar, form, teaches morality through symbols veiled in allegories. It's these tools like the 24-inch gauge, which is a 24-inch ruler. By being divided into 24, it's emblematic of the 24 hours in a day, which you can break up into 3 8-hour periods. For your time with your profession, 8 hours for your profession, 8 hours for your time, with worshiping your God and helping your fellow man, and 8 hours for rest and refreshment. It's not like that's how you're going to break your life up. You may work 12 hours a day, but it's teaching you to be able to divide things up and break them down into smaller parts so you can keep better control of your life. The common gavel we're taught as Masons, they were commonly used to break off the rough edges of stone to make the stone more fitted. But as Masons, we use it for a more noble and glorious purpose of divesting our minds of all the vices and superfluities. What Masonry is you're attempting to leave the material world behind. You're on a spiritual journey. You're now elevating. You're trying to elevate yourself into a better man, and it's a peculiar system of morality taught through symbols and veiled in allegories. And the allegories are all based on the stonemasons who built King Solomon's temple. So it's all, it's all based in Old Testament thinking. And so when people say, there I use the word conspiracy, people are going to say, well, that was a term, conspiracy theorist was, coined by the CIA after the JFK assassination. Well, people do conspire.
Oh, yeah.
That's just, when two people we're conspiring,
To make an awesome podcast.
Absolutely. And so it's to make you a better man, a better husband, a better citizen.
I think a lot of people need that. I've been on that journey.
We
for
do.
The past
we do.
5 years.
Any of us say we're perfect.
Yeah.
Come on.
Talking out the side
Come
of
on.
their neck. I hate that.
Yeah.
Especially because it's not hard for a lot of people to lie when they can just say it with confidence.
Well, yeah, veiled in moral superiority.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whatever I'm saying is correct. What you're saying is wrong.
Yeah, I'm going to be self-sanctimonious here and tell, I'm the guy who's right. I get into many discussions about Freemasonry on the internet and, well, you worship Lucifer. And my first instinct is to ask them, what is your evidence of that?
Yeah.
Well, Freemasonry is not compatible with Christianity. What is your evidence of that?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind with that is once we met, I started trying to do a deep dive into Freemasonry just so that when we would have this podcast, I wouldn't be talking out of my ass.
Well, you'd have a basic understanding.
Exactly. First thing that popped up on YouTube was Bill Schnoblin.
Oh,
is that how you say his name?
I call him Wild Bill.
Yeah. He's like, I was a level 30 something Freemason and I was a Satanist.
32nd degree, then he was a 90th degree. Well, in American, or what we call English Freemasonry, which is what's practiced in America, there are 3 degrees. Your entered apprentice, your fellow craft, and your master mason. The 3rd degree is the highest degree you can ever obtain. And people are going to say, yeah, but there's a 33rd and a 33. That's true, but they're not higher. Just because you're a 33rd or a 32nd degree Mason gives you no superiority or anything over a 3rd degree Mason. It's more of a lateral thing than like the Scottish Rite and the York Rite, what we call concordant or appendant bodies. They're actually separate. I mean, they're not part of the Blue Lodge, which is where you meet on a regular monthly basis, weekly basis, or bi-weekly basis, depending on the lodge. There is no bearing on that Blue Lodge whatsoever. It's going into the Scottish Rite or the York Rite. You dive deeper into the allegories is basically all you're doing. And, they like in the Scottish Rite, when we do our reunions every year, that's when we bring people in. And if you want to be a Freemason, you're never going to get asked. If I meet you and we're talking and you say, oh, I like your hat or I like your ring or your belt buckle or something, I said, oh, have you ever thought about consider being a Freemason?
It's an enticing symbol. The symbolism with Freemasonry is like,
and
when you see an old man
Yes.
with one of those rings,
yes.
and they, it's somebody that really has their shit together, and someone you are already looking up to, and you see a ring like that, you're like, oh, what's that?
Exactly.
I had some sergeant first classes and first sergeants that
so I would
those.
ask them if it's something you're interested in. I usually carry some business cards, and both business cards and my Masonic cards, and I'll give them my card and I say, if it's something that interests you, give me a call.
What immediately turned me away was watching that guy Bill talk about Satanism and
exactly.
So like the rituals and how he was giving examples of the rituals, how he was explaining it, and how you're basically doing a ritual to give your soul and everything to Satan and
or
like
Lucifer.
and just listening to it at at like midnight while I'm like looking at my phone,
Well,
which you shouldn't be.
It's tragic because
Yeah, it was a complete turnoff immediately.
if you look into his history, I mean, this guy was a Catholic. He was a Satanist, and he was a hardcore Satanist, and he was a Freemason, and he was a Mormon, and then he was a Catholic again, and then he was a vampire and lived for a year or 2 years just exclusively on human blood. And
Blah 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 blah.
how can you take this guy seriously?
Yeah.
But people do.
Well, when you
We want to
see
have that enemy to
exactly,
you know.
when you see that automatically on YouTube,
Yes.
you're thinking, okay, this is what is obviously. When I see that guy, I'm not like, oh, this guy represents Freemasonry. That being said, he has a ridiculous amount of knowledge pertaining to Freemasonry.
Well, and he sounds very convincing.
Yes.
I mean, I bought into his spiel before I became a Freemason. You know, like we had said, it took me 2 or 3 years of taking all the stuff that he said and all these different people to try and tie these things together and finding that it's all nonsense. It's all absolute nonsense. And I know people are going to quote in the thread, "Oh, you're full of shit." And it really
hey,
is.
leave
this.
comments, man.
Absolutely.
Say stuff.
Absolutely, because you're never going to know.
Yeah.
Unless you bare yourself and you say, well, this is what I think it is. And I'd rather you say, this is what I think, or this is what I've heard, than you do this.
Right.
That's pretty damn arrogant of you to tell me what I do.
Yeah. Anybody that says something with that much confidence and gives it this broad stroke and
stands
and
on the
says that-
moral high ground of I know
Yeah.
this and you do that.
Yeah.
You worship the devil. And it's like,
Yeah.
how do you know? You just told me it's a secret society. How do you know what we do?
Yeah. Anybody that says that they know what God wants, know what Satan or whatever your religion
a special
may be.
pipeline to God.
Exactly.
He
Like,
talks
it's-
specifically to you.
right off the bat. I just smell the bullshit. So
Exactly.
like I'm more of a, nobody knows the truth on whether or not God's real. It's all about
Hey, there's
faith.
3 sides to every story.
Yes.
Your side, my side, and the truth.
Yeah. No, I come and I've been going at a lot of stuff at that angle just because you don't know what the truth is, and the best thing you can do is
some
ask
objective
questions.
research,
Yes.
not just what satisfies your cognitive biases.
Yeah.
Just because you want to believe this, don't keep looking into that side of it.
Well, it sounds good on a podcast. So.
Exactly, and he's very convincing.
Yeah.
He's very convincing.
He has a long white beard. Of
Yeah.
course, everything.
And when he talks about being a 90th degree Mason, people say, well, that's nonsense. There's no such thing. There is. The Rite of Memphis, which is falls under the Grand Orient of France, they have 90 degrees. American or English or Scottish or Irish Freemasonry, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing. There are 32 degrees. If you join the Scottish Rite, there's 32 degrees, with the 33rd being an honorary title. There is no 33rd degree. I mean, if you read Morals and Dogma, there's only 32. The 33rd is honorary. It's like right now, I am a 32nd degree KCCH, which is Knight Commander Court of Honor. Instead of we have 3 hats. There's a black hat for the 32nd degree. The KCCH wears a red hat, and your 33rd degrees wear a white hat. It's technically not, but it's kind of like a 32 and a half. People out there will yell at me. It's not. That's why I say it's technically not, but it's an honorary title. And, it's because I am very involved. I love what we do. Freemasons contribute, last I heard, $2 million a day to charities. That's not
$2 million?
$2 million a day. That's not including what the Shriners Hospitals for Children do, which I'm a Shriner as well. We have.
And what is a Shriner? Just a Freemason
Shriner,
in a different
yeah,
category?
you have to be a Freemason to be a Shriner. It's another appendant body. There's no degrees. There's none of that. It was designed to be fun. the drudgery out of it. It was designed to, let your hair down, so to speak. If you've seen them in parades or running around little cars or mini bikes or stuff
Ding,
like
ding.
that with the red fez on. And we do that all to solicit money to support the Shriners Hospitals. The Shriners Hospitals for Children do a lot of orthopedic prosthetics. They're the world leader myofascial cranial surgery in the world. And it's all free.
Nice. Is that all that? Do they do anything to help fundraise money for veterans or anything like that?
No, that's the Sojourners. That's a whole nother.
Say that one more time.
The Sojourners, National Sojourners.
Okay.
That's the. If you're a veteran and you join Freemasonry, you can become a Sojourner.
Okay.
They deal with youth groups, like ROTC, JROTC, and groups like that. And
I had never heard of that.
yeah, and matter of fact, I'm just going to join the National Sojourners next week.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, anything helping vets.
Anything.
I'm pro.
and again, that's kind of the basis of why I want to bring Freemasonry to veterans. It's funny, you veterans join Freemasonry and they come into these lodges and there's nothing going on and there's no leadership, and a veteran's like, we've got no direction. We need to go this way.
Yeah.
And you're going to start taking charge and making things happen. That's just the tendencies that, you're trained with. There's got to be someone leading this.
Yeah.
We're not just going to be, like a bunch of herding cats.
Well,
everyone
there's so many different issues in the veteran community that different types of veterans deal with on a daily basis.
Right.
That it's hard to kind of hone in on, okay, what are we going to focus on? Self-deletion.
Right. Yeah.
Veterans,
even
21
if
today,
you weren't a
or-
combat vet, there are things in the military where there's always structure. Someone is always in charge of this thing, and it's going to be done a certain way within a variability. It's always going to be done that way. And you get out and you're in the civilian world and that structure's gone.
Did the VA help you after you got out of the Navy, or did Freemasonry help you?
Well,
what helped you get through that transition?
nothing helped me through the transition. I was out I got out in 91. And when I first started going back, getting help from the VA was in 2012.
Jeez. Was there any programs that they put you through prior to getting out?
No.
Like we have TAPS and stuff like that now?
Nothing.
Nothing.
It was like, your EAOS,
Deuces.
see ya.
Damn.
Have a good life.
Damn.
And there was nothing.
Yeah.
And that's why, it was through the VA that I found out about PAM Vets, Proud American Vets, which
That's
is where I
we
met you.
Yeah.
We meet here at the Golden Corral in Loveland.
8:30 every Saturday.
Every Saturday. Talk about
That's
a
amazing.
fantastic group of people. You've got World War II veterans, Korean veterans, Vietnam veterans, of
Iraq, Afghanistan.
even the forgotten war, Korea and Kuwait. Everyone forgets those two. We skip from Vietnam to Iran and Iraq. Well, Kuwait was in the middle. It was very short, and a lot of guys, laugh at us because it wasn't as
Bloody.
brutal and bloody
Yeah.
as for us.
Right.
For the people there, it was a hell of a lot worse. We saw, you see things that human beings really should never see.
Yeah.
And you get out and, it doesn't affect you right away because in the military, you're taught to push it down, keep going.
Get over it. Take
get
it
over
eat,
it.
drink water.
Yep. Here, have some Motrin and hydrate.
700 milligram ibuprofen.
Change your socks.
Yeah.
And so, I got, and I didn't really realize I needed anything. As I look back, the first time that I recall any effect of this was I had met this gal dancing at the Grizzly Rose, and we became a couple. And I came up to Greeley to visit her, and I was spending the weekend, and I was taking a nap in the bedroom, and I bolt straight upright. I heard a helicopter, and I jumped up and I started yelling, "The bird's here! The bird's here! It's time to go! We gotta go! We gotta go! Let's go!" And she yells up, "What's going on?" I said, "The bird's here." She said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "That's the train." That sound, as I was sleeping, I thought it was, an incoming helo coming to extract us, And
That's such a weird feeling.
oh, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, waking up out of a dead sleep.
And you think it's literally happening right then and there.
Exactly. And you see it. I mean, it's there. It's real. I mean, it's real as rain.
Yeah.
It is. You are in that place. The smells.
The smells are what put me in that, like,
Oh, yeah.
that's-
You smell it. You feel it. I mean, you can feel the vibrations, the sounds. It's
I've
not
had
real.
panic attacks just from
Absolutely.
smelling like porter potties and hot
Cordite.
piss on asphalt.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. You smell a cordite, and it's like, oh, smell a cordite in the morning. It's like napalm in the morning.
Jesus.
And for those you don't know what cordite is, that's a smell. What's in gunpowder that makes the smell.
Well, have you ever heard of what wolf pussy is? You ever heard that?
I've heard the term.
It's from artillery. Whenever you're shooting a howitzer or something. It's a vulgar term, but it's hilarious.
What term in the military isn't vulgar?
Exactly. Yeah. But it like smelling that will immediately take you back,
Instantly.
either in a positive way or a negative way. But
Absolutely.
negative is more like
Our sense of smell is so incredible.
it'll bring you back.
It'll take you back to a certain place in time. The funny thing about the sense of smell is it has the best and worst memory. If you're around hydrogen sulfide and you start smelling that rotten egg smell, after you're around, like you work in a pig barn, after a while you don't smell it anymore.
Right.
It's got the best and worst memory. Long-term memory, like you say, you smell that and bam, you're instantly in that place. And there's really nothing you can do to condition yourself away from it.
Water treatment plants for me smell like Afghanistan. And if anybody that's been there, they know the poo pond and it just it smells like shit. So it will bring you back kind of thing. And we got a bunch of those out here in Colorado.
Yep. Surface.
I hate going to Greeley.
Yeah. Everybody hates Greeley.
Yeah.
That's why I can never get anybody to visit our lodge.
Are you sure you want to meet in like Loveland or something?
Right. How about Fort Lupton or Fort Collins?
What do you think's helped you more? Veterans, the VA, or Freemasonry?
Well, I think it's a combination. I got started with the VA, and my first experience with them, I had a hernia for 7 years.
Ooh,
And as soon as I got going with them, within a week, I had my hernia fixed.
nice.
But then they put me on that medication, which I feel is responsible for the global amnesia or my memory loss and what I call that brain injury or TBI, the traumatic brain injury I received. And so it was kind of a double-edged sword. And I got away from them for several years. And
After dealing with the amnesia and stuff like that.
because they were telling me, oh, it's all in your mind.
Yeah.
It's not real.
Yeah.
And when I told them I think I had this global amnesia, they're like, no, you must have had a stroke or something.
It's weird how all that works. I'm dealing with this issue.
It's
you're
not real.
fine, no big deal.
Yeah.
20 years later, if you've ever been stationed at Fort Benning or any of these other U.S.
Camp
installations,
Lejeune. The
you know what I
water
mean?
at Camp
Did you-
Lejeune.
You didn't drink the water, did you? Like, what? Yeah. God.
AFFF, fire
you don't
foam,
have liver
firefighting
cancer.
foam.
Yeah.
We dealt with that shit on a daily basis.
God.
I was a firefighter. We filling the pump stations and they said, oh, it's just a high concentrate
It's just
detergent,
foam.
That foams up.
It's bubbles and stuff. It
yeah.
can't hurt you.
What we had before that was protein foam, which was made from animal blood, which in itself wasn't so bad. It did the job, but when you start pumping that and it starts flowing over the side of a ship and you're putting animal blood in the water and you have to abandon ship,
Oh, no.
you're going to have some visitors that aren't really, that are very hungry.
I think we're going to need a bigger boat.
Exactly. So they decided that maybe pumping animal blood over the side isn't such a good thing.
And you look like the dude from Jaws, too. We're going to need a bigger boat.
So, yeah, they decided that wasn't a good thing, and they came out with AFFF. And they told us, it's safe. It's just a high detergent foam, soap, and it foams up, and it's through that foam that breaks the, you got the fire triangle. For a fire to survive, you have to have heat, fuel, and oxygen. You take away any one of those three, and a fire goes out. And so it basically is that barrier that suffocates a fire, particularly like oil and gas fires. And, guys are doing their laundry in this shit. You know what I mean?
Well, think about that. I bet you they said it with confidence.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't going to do anything to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you got some on your face and your mouth? You're good.
It's just soap.
20 years later.
If you've been exposed
yes.
to AFFF, you may be entitled to compensation, and you may have testicular cancer and liver cancer. But
during that time, that has nothing to do with that. So, I could totally see.
Well, and in with that, there is a high rate of, we'll call it self-deletion of veterans. They say it's 22 a day, which in itself is an epidemic.
Yeah.
But when you look at it closely, it's more like 250 a day. And they're finding that the highest percentage of guys doing that right now are Navy pilots.
Why do you think that is?
They put the forward-facing radar under the seat. And these guys are all getting testicular cancer.
Ugh.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
I mean, why would you do that? You know that it being in front of a radar, I mean, they tell you not to stand in front of your microwave. And they put one right under the seat of your plane, which is what, a little half an inch of foam and a piece of aluminum, which probably conducts it even more.
Yeah.
Just
along with the 1,000 other things that are in the planes that are doing whatever else they're doing to your body.
The JP5, the JP8, which contains all the other chemicals that are causing cancer. And but it's safe.
Yeah. Well,
trust me.
Exactly.
Trust me.
I could totally go more off topic on doctors and shit like that. They can say whatever they want with confidence as if everything they're saying is true, but none of them know. They're just regurgitating shit that they read in a book.
They're talking about my cholesterol being high. So, instead of going on a statin again, they said, would you rather have do a talk with a nutritionist? So I talked to the nutritionist. She said, well, what are you cooking with? I said, olive oil, coconut oil. Well, you need to stop using those because they're higher in this and that, and you should start using canola oil. Are you serious? Canola oil is the most toxic thing you can put in your body. Seed oils are really not good for you, but that's what they recommend. And again, with confidence.
Yeah.
Well,
I think the thing that's hard for most Americans and just people in general to understand is we're just being told, these doctors and these nutritionists and all that, they're being told by people that are at a higher echelon in that job.
Absolutely.
And they wrote it in a book and they said that this is it. And, we did a bunch of studies and we, all of these studies that we have are saying that what we're saying is true and don't worry about it. This is the truth. It's science. Trust science.
Trust the science.
Then it's okay, how many studies did you put together? Oh, we put together 50. How many studies did you really put together? We put together 150 and we were allowed to pick 50.
Right.
And it's okay, what about the other 100?
Well, but it was peer reviewed.
Yeah.
Well,
Where
your
those
peers
people-
have been told the same thing you are, and you're not going to
Yeah.
go against your peers.
especially if the company that's paying for the studies and
Exactly.
your salary and everything else
Exactly.
are,
But
pharmaceutical company
We're
paid
raised
for.
to believe in authority, that appeal to authority fallacy. Trust the science. Dare I say, Fauci. Trust. You're questioning me. I'm the science. What?
It's more like
Don't do your
double
own
mask.
research.
Don't forget to wear like 4 masks. Actually, never mind. Don't worry about the masks. I changed my mind.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
is that something that you run into in Freemasonry where, you have the higher echelon, higher degree people saying this is, what we want to push forward?
And absolutely not. There is no grand authority in
Like
Freemasonry.
the Pope of Freemasonry.
There is no such thing. Every state has their own Grand Lodge, which is not beholden to any other state's Grand Lodge. And guys always say, well, the Grand Lodge this, the Grand Lodge that. Guys, you're the Grand Lodge. We elect officers to run our Grand Lodge. You're talking about the Grand Lodge officers. Everything in Freemasonry it's a democratic institution. Everything is done by a vote. Every year when we go to Grand Lodge or the meetings, people decide they want to change this in the Constitution or this in the Constitution. So they'll write everything up, and the lodges will go over these changes before you go to the Grand Lodge session, and decide how the lodge, what we believe, what we want to see, whether we want the change or we don't want the change, or we want this of it but not that of it. And so then we go to session, and these things come up for a vote, and someone will read it, and then they'll say, okay, you come up, there'll be a microphone on either side. Those who are for it can come up and speak for it. Those against it can come up and speak against it. And after everybody's done, there's nobody else wants to talk, then we'll take a vote. And that's how everything happens.
Is there a set constitution or set of rules that have already been passed down that no matter what, these can't be amended?
No.
These are the set rules.
No.
So each individual lodge has its own set of rules.
Every lodge has their own bylaws.
Okay. Who's the top?
In every state,
of-
you have your Grand Lodge. When there's a constitution that, is per state, every state has their own, basically their rules and edicts. And, the Grand Master of Kansas can't come over to the Grand Master of Colorado and say, well, you're going to do things this way, because that doesn't happen. There is no overarching authority. It's all democratic. And all of the Grand Lodge officers are elected. Every year there's a new Grand Master. And it's technically not supposed to be a progressive line, but it generally is. Once you start and you'll progress through the line, if you do something really egregious and people don't like you, you're just not going to get voted in for the next chair. That's how it works.
Is there a worldwide group of Freemasonry, or is it specific to the United States?
Well, American Freemasonry is all structured under the English Freemasonry. The United Grand Lodge of England is where the actual constitution of Freemasonry is held, and that's what we call Anderson's Constitution, and that is the basics of the way Freemasonry works, and it's been that way since Anderson wrote that Constitution in the 1700s. The Grand Lodge of England was founded in 1717. Not to say there was Freemasonry went on before that, There's much speculation when it actually started, whether it was in Egypt, whether it was here or there, who started it, who was the first Grand Lodge. Was it Kilwinning, number 0 in Scotland? Was it the Templars breaking free after the 1307, when the Templars were broke up by the Prince Philip the Fair and the Pope? Did they go to Scotland, and did Freemasonry start there?
Did it start in Egypt?
Well,
because I've heard a couple conspiracy theories about that.
Well,
the people that helped build the pyramids.
Exactly. It's hard to explain. Freemasonry is not really a thing. It's a concept. It's a way of being. So it's hard to actually nail it down exactly.
Right.
When we say Freemasonry has existed since time immemorial, a lot of it is based on the Egyptian concept of Ma'at, which is M-A''AT. And if you see the hieroglyphs or hieroglyphs in Egypt, you'll see a figure of a woman holding a scale. And in that scale, one side is a heart and one side is the feather. Under their concept, to enter the afterlife, your heart had to balance with a feather. You couldn't have any a lot of bad things in your life, but at the same time, you couldn't be grandiose either. You had, because the universe seeks a balance. It's always going to seek balance. Water is always going to seek level. So it's that concept of equality, liberty. These are the things that our country was founded on: free expression, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And so the concepts, a lot of those concepts came out of Egypt. You'll get people that'll argue with me about it. But,
right. Do any of the groups outside of the U.S. have any control over the Freemasons of America?
Only in the fact that for the lodges to have been constituted and given each lodge has their own, what do I want to say, charter. It has to be chartered through, initially all the charters had to come from England. Now, to charter a lodge in the state, you have to go through the state. The state Grand Lodge gives you the permission to charter another lodge. And there are rules about how that you have to have so many people, go around and talk to, so many certain number of lodges in your area. So they're, if you start another lodge, is it going to take away people from this lodge?
Right.
So, they're trying to keep things balanced out. So, yeah, there is no overarching authority.
So there's no state that's the top dog of Freemasonry in America.
There's no even like in the Scottish Rite. In the Southern jurisdiction, we have the Grand Commander, Jim Cole. I've got an opportunity to meet him. He is the quintessential Southern gentleman. Very soft-spoken, very kind, generous, beautiful man. And, when people talk about all these conspiracies, I think of these people, and it's like, this is one of the most beautiful men I've ever met in my life. It is just his countenance. He is just a man among men.
The way he carries himself?
The way he carries himself, the way he speaks. He's just a very, just genuinely nice man. And, he is the sovereign Grand Commander, which was what Pike was. Albert Pike. There was a lot of conspiracies around Pike.
Yeah, what book did he write?
Morals and Dogma of the Scottish Rite of the Southern Jurisdiction.
Gotcha.
And that deals with all 32 degrees are in there, but most Scottish Rite lodges, I think there are what they call craft lodges down in Louisiana that will start the Scottish Rite in the 1st degree. But most states start it in the 4th degree because you're already a 3rd degree Master Mason. You have to be a 3rd degree Master Mason to join that appendant or concordant body of the Scottish Rite. And from there you go from the 4th to the 14th, from the 14th or from the 15th to the 32nd, depending on your jurisdiction. In our jurisdiction, in Wyoming, where I'm actually the Venerable Master of the Lodge of Perfection.
Nice.
Lodge of Perfection is the 14th degree, but all the bodies meet in one lodge at one time. And we do our reunions every year. We used to do 2, but we've had so few people coming through that to put on a reunion is a big affair.
Right.
Because we do plays. And so you have to have a cast put together. You have to have all these people come in from all the different places within, some of them come from different parts of the state to help, because particularly if we're such a small valley.
Why do you think that Freemasonry has such a hard time with getting new members and retaining them?
I think now it's after post-World War II, there was a surge in Freemasonry where some lodges had 200, 300, 400 members. Now we're lucky if we can get 10 guys regularly to come.
Right.
And they were called the joiner generation. Those guys joined the Freemasons, the Oddfellows, the Woodmen of the World, the Lions, the
Looking
Moose.
for groups.
They were looking for the camaraderie of the Brotherhood that they found when they were in the military. And there's a saying: we secret society ourselves out of a fraternity.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think there's a resurgency of Christianity. I think it's booming right now.
Yes.
And if a group like the Freemasons, I remember you saying that you guys aren't specific to any in particular religion.
No, all, and that's why we refer to, I'll use air quotes, God as a great architect or the grand architect of the universe, because if you're a Muslim, you're going to call him Allah.
Right.
If you're a Christian, you're going to call him God. So it's a secular group of people that, if there's a Muslim in your body, alongside the Bible will be the Quran. If you have a Jewish brother, the Torah or the Tanakh will be on there. If you have any other a Buddhist, whatever, their volume, what we call the volume of sacred law, will be on the altar in the lodge.
Is it something that, let's say I wanted to join, and I consider myself a Christian and I give my life to God and that's what I believe in? With those rituals, just going off of this guy, Bill Schnoblin, or however you say his last name, the way he was talking about everything is like, oh, they're trying to trick you and get you to give your soul and stuff to Lucifer. That wasn't the immediate turnoff for me.
And it is for most people.
But the way I'm looking at it is, I would love to find a group like this where, it's pertaining, not specifically pertaining to Christianity, but making it to where when I'm doing a ritual or when I'm like doing whatever I need to do to get to the next degree, it's for my Lord and Savior,
right,
and not something else. Or
when they say you take these oaths, well, we really don't take
right.
oaths, we take an obligation. And
but who to? Is it to who you believe in, or
it's and that's why your volume of the sacred law is on the altar. When you take that obligation, it's to Allah or whatever your higher power is.
do you say that in the oaths that you take,
No,
or is it like a roundabout way?
As you come around, they'll say, in whom do you put your trust? And most Christians will say, God. Your trust, your faith being well-founded, rise, follow your conductor, and fear no danger. It's not a religion, but you can't be an atheist, because to take an oath or an obligation, you have to believe in something that's going to bind you to that. And again, it's sectarian. Again, you can say, my belief is in Allah, or your faith being well founded. It helps you practice your own faith better. We're not saying you have to read the Bible. If you're a Jew of the Jewish persuasion, the Tanakh or the Torah, the Old Testament, whatever is the basis for your faith, it helps you become a better person in your own faith, in your own life.
Right.
We say we want to make good men better. You can't really make a bad man good, but you can help a good man to become a better man by encouraging him, by standing by him. Secret society, again, like we said, all of our buildings are clearly marked. The meeting times are on the door. We've got Facebook pages, websites. It's not secret. We have secrets, our modes of recognition. There's really nothing I can't tell you that would violate my obligation, except I can't tell you the modes of recognition.
Is there a map on the back of the Constitution? Or the Declaration of Independence?
Well, if I told you that, I had to kill you. But you can only see it with special glasses.
Yeah.
If there is, I haven't seen it.
I doubt they're going to bring the Declaration of Independence to Colorado.
Right?
Hey, guys, we know you wanted to check.
We know you wanted to
quick.
check this out to make sure it is. But so, no, it's, because Washington, Franklin, a lot of the founding fathers, Hancock, Paul Revere, these guys were Masons. So there's a lot of conspiratorial
Illuminati.
Which,
things like that,
yes.
yeah.
And the Illuminati did exist. It was started by Adam Weishaupt in 1776. It was basically Germany's answer to what we call the Enlightenment movement that was happening in Europe, which is basically what today's Freemason was found on the Enlightenment principles. Free speech, free assembly,
Right to bear arms.
Those kind of things. And, you're free to believe what you want. Like, the First Amendment, you can't force anybody to be any religion. They say, well, all the presidents were Freemasons. Well, actually, technically 14 were. Johnson would have been 15, but Johnson only went through his first degree and then fell out. So technically he would have been a Mason, but really not.
Were the Clintons, or was Bill Clinton or the Bushes a part of Freemasonry?
Bill Clinton was in Demolay, which is a boys group that
Like Skull and Bones or something?
Skull and Bones is a Yale fraternity. It had nothing to do with Freemasonry.
What were they trying to connect it to? What were they trying to say it was a part of Freemasonry? Or?
Well, a lot of people take that as being a part of it, but it's not. We're completely separate. They say all the presidents were Freemasons. Well, only 14 of them technically were. Now 15 because Joe Biden was made a Mason on site by the Prince Hall. That's
Prince not Hall, looking good for Freemasonry, man.
Well, but
you got Joe Biden.
Yeah, that was done by Prince Hall, which is the group of black Freemasons. When Freemasonry started in the United States, in our ritual, we say you had to be free-born. The concept being is if you're born into slavery, you're going to have a concept of the way things are. And if you're not free-born, you're not going to, the concepts of freedom and free thinking aren't going to be part of your ideas. And so blacks weren't allowed to become Freemasons. So this gentleman named Prince Hall started the African lodges, and they call them Prince Hall lodges, which is the majority of your African Americans or your blacks belong to the Prince Hall lodges. And not all states are in amity. Colorado is. We have an agreement between the Prince Hall and ours because they're different. I mean,
How big are the differences between the Freemasons
The
and
Prince Hall,
the Prince Halls?
it's fundamentally the same, but I can't really speak too much for Prince Hall. I do know that they really do the work. I mean, I see them, particularly in Colorado. I see them out. You know, they get backpacks for kids to go to school. You know, they take kids to the Rockies games. They clean up parks and abandoned parking lots, and you know they get out and they're doing the work. Pike said in that Morals and Dogma in the first chapter, he said Masonry should be an energy, finding at its aim and effect the amelioration or the betterment of mankind. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And I often finish that comment with, are we doing that? If we're
Right.
not, we need to check ourselves, because that's what we're supposed to be doing. You know, Pike says in a way, Freemasonry is a religion, but it's a religion according to Mark 1:27, where the truest form of religion, the purest form of religion before God, is to help the widows and the orphans and to keep oneself unspotted in the world. That's what we're out to do. You know, we're there. It's a benevolence organization, and I already mentioned that we give millions of dollars a day to charities. You know, the Shriners have the hospitals. The Scottish Rite, we have language clinics, and what we do is people have dyslexia or speech impediments or problems. We and this is all free to the families and the students. We bring them in, and we have teachers that'll come in, and they work with these kids, and they help them with their schoolwork. They help them to
Like tutors.
exactly clinicians, we call them.
Gotcha.
The clinicians. And the first year I joined the Scottish Rite, I went to the Christmas party. I thought, oh, this would be fun, the Christmas party for the Scottish Rite. Well, it's technically not for the Scottish Rite. It's our language centers, which I'm on the board for the Right Care Language Clinics in Cheyenne. And every year we put on this Christmas party. It's for the children in our clinics. And, we have a Christmas party for them. We get a couple of Shriners clowns come in, and they make balloons, and we have Santa come, and our clinician buys every student and each of their siblings a gift, so nobody's left out. And these,
Nice.
We're not talking, bubble gum. We're talking, she buys them a decent, really nice gift,
Thought out.
well thought out, and the Santa Claus gives each kid their gift. And I was passing out ice cream, little cups of ice cream and cookies, and one of the families came up and said, we really appreciate what you've done for our child. When we brought our child in here, we couldn't communicate with our child.
Mm.
And it's through the help that your language clinics have helped our child. We can now communicate with our child. And as I use air quotes, our child can now live a normal life.
Right. I mean, it sounds like you guys are doing some badass stuff. Why do you think it is? I know we kind of touched on some stuff here and there with, guys like Bill pushing out propaganda or conspiracies or whatever it may be about the Freemasons, but why do you think it is that you guys are having such a hard time keeping people?
We don't
Or
necessarily
getting
have,
people to
it's more
join.
getting people, because a lot of the Christian churches have this concept that Freemasonry is bad. This comes from the 1820s with the Taxel hoax and all the the Luciferian nonsense that was pushed out by that, and worshiping Satan, and the fact that they think it's a secret. And again, a lot of the earlier brothers in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, I think it mostly because they really didn't know what Freemasonry was. They just told everybody, well, I can't tell you, it's a secret.
Mm.
why is doing good work a secret?
Yeah.
You know,
Making yourself a better person.
making yourself a better man. Now, we don't go around bragging. You know, the Bible says when you give, that not your right hand know what your left hand is doing. You know, we don't go around saying, well, you know, we do this and we do that and we do this. It's about that, but it's not about that. You know, that's just kind of a side effect of what we do, or the wake of what happens as good men are making themselves better. You want to help other people get better. And, you know, it's through our donations, and all this stuff is all by donation. The language clinics for the Scottish Rite, the vision centers for the York Rite. One of the brothers in Denver, his daughter was born blind. And when she was 6, the York Rite vision centers took her case and they gave her sight. And to hear him tell him tell the story, I mean, would just almost bring you to tears.
Was it eye surgery that they?
Yeah, they did
doing?
an eye surgery on her, and I don't know the technical aspects of it, but they did. They gave her sight, and she can see. And as he says, the very first thing she said is, "Dad, your eyes are blue." And I mean, it just
Yeah.
you know, you get all mushy and moist, you know, and
I mean, it's crazy how many people could just be not cured, but helped by,
Well, yeah.
not even minor surgeries, but just surgeries
Right.
in general. I think Mr. Beast did something like that where he like cured 1,000 people's blindness, you know, where it's technical blindness, but like,
Right.
and it was just regular minor surgery that could help somebody go
Well,
from
and
blurry, can't
I'm
see
speaking
anything.
on kind of uneducated, but most people that are blind doesn't mean they have absolutely no
Right.
sight. It's just that their sight is so poor. You know, they use the cane so they don't trip over things, and you know, they know when a step is and things like that. I mean, I'm sure there are people that are, I mean, absolutely sight deprived, but I don't think the majority of the people that are technically classified as blind have absolutely no
The majority,
sight.
I think, are like shadows, light, things like
Right.
that. But like, you got some people where it's just pitch black kind of thing. But no, I could definitely see things like that being a good motivator and making groups like the groups that you're in want to do more to help people. And I think if you guys just vocalize stuff more, like coming onto a podcast, which
Exactly.
I appreciate.
And we haven't for so long because, you know, again, we're not out to aggrandize ourselves. You know, it's not about that. But, you know, there's a lot of good things that do come out of Freemasonry, contrary to what the propaganda or the conspiracies, you know.
Are there any conspiracies that you can think of that might actually be true or have merit?
Unfortunately, most of them I think of are all the negative stuff. You know, the worshiping Lucifer, the other Satan, and it's not compatible. You can't be a Christian and a Freemason.
Do any of those you think have merit in what they're saying?
No.
No.
Because again, we're not a religion. But at the same time, all of our principles, everything that we're founded upon is out of the Old Testament. I mean, now, in Scottish Rite and in the Blue Lodge, you just have to believe in a higher power. In the York Rite, if you want to be a Knight Templar, you have to take a vow to support and defend the Christian faith, as the Knights Templar technically did. They were warrior monks. They were, you know, basically Catholic monks or Cistercian monks. So even though our Knights Templar, there's a lot of talk about whether we're actually connected to the Knights Templar or not. I can't speak to it technically. There's a lot of people that believe we are. Some say we're not. You know, there's a very gray area there.
Aren't the Knights Templar the guys that help protect the
Yes.
Holy Grail?
The
Stuff
poor,
like that.
the poor Knights of Christ and the Temple of Solomon. Yes, they were technically, that's what they started out as, to guide, the pilgrims to the Holy Land, and protect them from being robbed and murdered and killed. And in doing so, they created what we now call, the first branch banks, where you could deposit your gold into one of the Templar priories, and they would give you a certificate, and you could travel to a foreign country and go to that another Templar priory and draw money out. So you didn't have to travel with your money. So, which in turn they became, very rich. It was a very lucrative thing, because sometimes
Banking
people
usually does.
well, people would die, and that money would be there, and kingdoms. The king of Portugal deeded 2/3 of Portugal to the Templars. People gave them properties and lands, and a lot of these were agricultural, and they made money off of it, and things like that. And that's what Prince Philip the Fair was after when he had them executed and excommunicated through the Pope. That the Pope whom he had in his pocket, he was after their wealth.
Do you think the Vatican and the Pope are pro Freemasonry or anti now, today in 2025?
Well, there is an encyclical or a papal bull against Catholics from becoming Freemasons. The Catholics really have a problem with the Freemasons. The Freemasons, we don't care if you're Catholic. Matter of fact, there are Catholics in Freemasonry, and it's not as hard set as it used to be. When a Catholic comes in, we'll often tell them, well, you might want to talk to your priest or or your bishop and see what they think, because we don't want to cause a conflict in your life. That's not what we want to do. But like my senior warden, our senior warden at Century, he's a Catholic. I know many brothers that are Catholics. And again, we have no issue with the Catholics. The Catholics have an issue with us.
Are there any groups, races, or sects that are not allowed in Freemasonry?
Nope.
Are women allowed in Freemasonry?
Not in English Freemasonry. Well, now England is allowing women to start becoming Freemasons. There has been a French out of France, Le Droit Humain, which is what they call co-masonry, which has had women in it since the 1800s. So there are women Freemasons. A lot of the Freemasons will call me a heretic for saying that, because, we take a vow to an obligation that will never be in a lodge that makes a woman or a young man in his nonage or an old man in his dotage, an atheist or a fool, and we'll never sit in lodge with them. So, there are still men right now that say women can't be Freemasons.
I ain't gonna have no woman tell me what to do.
Exactly. And most of their lodges are all women. So you don't really get the mix. In Freemasonry, we have, I'm not sure exactly when it was started, but what's called the Order of the Eastern Star, which is for men and women. Now, they don't confer any of the degrees, and I think their premise is basically on the five matriarchs in the Old Testament. Ruth, and I can't think of all those women's names, but it's all founded on Christian or biblical principles. I've had people tell me that the Masons and the Eastern Stars have sex rituals, and it's like you have sex with each other's wives, and it's like, I don't know where you
Here's
get
a
that
fishbowl
from.
at the front door. We're just gonna throw our keys.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, I don't know where these rumors started or why they started. I think a lot of it had to do with the Diana Vaughn thing.
It's probably a group of swingers that were also Freemasons.
And
that
that,
were like,
and
I got
that-
an
and that-
idea.
but you know, you in your obligation, you say I'll not have sexual intercourse with another brother's wife, sister, daughter. I mean, that is part of the Master Mason obligation.
That's
is
a good
you
rule.
will not do that. So, and of course, not every Mason is the same man outside the lodge that he is inside
Right.
the lodge. You know, I often say, you know, why can't you just be the man in the world that you are when you're on your knees taking your obligation?
Right.
You know, I take it more seriously, I think, than a lot of people do. Maybe I take it too seriously.
Do you think a
I
lot of
don't
people
think
hold
so.
those same values that you do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
Or do you think it's waning in Freemasonry? Like it used to be a lot more on people's minds, at the top of their minds, and now it's like,
well, I think it has kind of
whatever.
waned a little bit because, like, again, our membership has dwindled.
right.
You know, we're in some lodges are actually in crisis mode. There are lodges closing. There are lodges who are merging with other lodges just to stay alive, because we're just, you know, we're not allowed to proselytize. I can't ask you, hey Joe, you want to be a Freemason? Technically, I can't ask you that. I can get around it by saying, you know, you mentioned, oh, I like their hat, or tell me about the Freemasons, and I can say, well, have you ever considered becoming a Freemason? You know, we're always looking for good men. But technically, I can't just walk up to someone and say, you want to be a Freemason? Or I can't tell one of my employees, well, you know, if you become a Freemason, you'll get this other position.
Right.
I'm sure it's been done,
Oh yeah, definitely.
but technically our rules state that you can't do that. The old saying is, and it's on the back of my card, to be one, ask one. You have to ask, because as you go through your degrees, you'll be asked multiple times, is this of your own free will and accord that you're making this choice or this decision? And I mean, it's probably asked you as you knock at the door, as you go around to the different stations while you're going through your degrees. The wardens will ask you, is this of your own free will and accord? And if you don't say yes, you know, we have what people call the noose. They put a noose around your neck. We call it a cable toe. And again, you're blindfolded. And if, you know, theoretically, if you're not a good candidate, you can be let out by your cable toe. The cable toe is kind of like an umbilicus. You know, we say it ties the brother to the fraternity. And oftentimes, and we've been talking about this a lot lately, we forget that there's two ends on this cable toe. It ties the brother to the fraternity, but it also ties the fraternity to the brother. If that brother needs help, you need to be there. That's part of your obligation, is to help a brother in need. As long as it causes no harm to you, yourself, or your family. You're supposed to give as liberally as you can to another brother's need, as long as it doesn't harm you. You know, you can't like give him your house payment and you go without. You have to take care of yourself and your family first. But with what you have left over, you're supposed to give as liberally as you feel you can without causing detriment to yourself or your family.
Where do you place Freemasonry in your life? You know, some people say God, country, family, you know, stuff like in that way.
In that way, you know, it's kind of complicated because it culminates God, country, and family. I mean, it's kind of encompasses all those things in our obligations. You know, you're supposed to be a good citizen. You're not supposed to violate the laws of your country. You know, you're not supposed to take part in treason. You know, you're supposed to be a good citizen. So I think it would have to come after all those, but I think it in saying that, it supports all of those at the same time. You know, it makes you, if you're a Christian, it helps you become a better Christian. It helps you, you know, practice your faith more faithfully. I would like to say, as a politician, it would make you, you know, a better politician. But
You would hope.
you would hope. But you know, we had Truman. He started World War, you know, involved in World War II, and Churchill, and
He's not
you
the
know.
only one. There's a lot of people today that are like, you know what? I think we need a World War III.
Yes,
Like,
and
mind blowing.
what we have to remember is every man is a man first, susceptible to all the faults and foibles of humanity before he's a Freemason. You know, we're taught to circumscribe our passions, which doesn't mean you can't have your passions. You just need to keep them within due bounds. And
Do you think other people in Freemasonry hold those values?
well, I say we do, but I think a lot of us kind of negate them. And I'm not trying to call anybody out.
Right.
I'm not saying you're a bad Mason, but I think sometimes in the hectic life of everyday world, we don't remember our obligations like we might should.
Right.
And again, I'm not trying to call anybody out, but
You run into that in any group or
you do,
fraternity.
you do. And you run into brothers who get catty and start, you know, talking behind other brothers' backs, and it's unfortunate, and we call that unmasonic behavior. And I say, you know, that's contrary to the fundamentals of what Freemasonry is about. But it's human nature. You know, we can't change human nature. We can only help guys try and circumscribe those things. You know, keep those passions within due bounds, to be a better man, to be a better husband, you know, to be a better citizen. I know I'm sounding redundant,
No, I
but
mean,
it's basically, you know, and
if more people held those values, I think we would have a lot better world.
absolutely.
And people you'd want to be around. But I think along with, you know, everybody feeling like they're fending for themselves, it's like, oh, well, screw that guy. I'm going to get mine.
Exactly.
You know, and it's
dog
not
eat dog world.
Yeah.
And Freemasonry, you know,
It's because we allow it. It's because the world is
Exactly.
surrounded by weak men
exactly.
that allow other weak men to take advantage of people in general.
Exactly. Exactly. And, you know, as Masons, we're supposed to stand against tyranny. You know, if you see somebody being tyrannized or terrorized, you're supposed to stand up, not take a side. You're supposed to take the center, you know. Like we said before, there are three sides to every story. So, you know, you don't necessarily, you know, take the side of the weaker person or the side of the stronger person. You're supposed to separate the two and help them work it out. You know, to be the mediator. Not necessarily take a side, but don't let one attack the other. Don't let one claim to have a moral high ground over the other.
Right.
You know, because even though you might be right, the way you're treating the other person is wrong. So you're still not right. And, you know, I think if we stick to the fundamentals that Freemasonry espouses, our world could be a better place. I mean, that's sounds utopian.
If we could all just get along.
If we could all just get along,
No,
coexist.
In my view, I think life in general, your life, my life, is all about us bettering ourselves and making us a better version of ourselves over time. I think that's how you get into heaven. Whatever your heaven
Absolutely.
is. I think this is heaven or this is hell.
Exactly.
It can be your hell or it can be your heaven. And it's up to you to make that change and to make the world, your world, that thing.
Reflect that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, you know, it's the tools that, you know, we give the brothers, like I said, the gavel, the chisel, the plumb, and the level, and the square. Because we talk about the plumb means you're standing in moral rectitude. You're being a good, honest, upright person. And if you're on the level, you're on the level. So if you're upright and you're level, you're square. You know, you've heard the term dealing squarely with people.
No. I've
If a
heard like
person
I'm
is-
coming to you square, like or like
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, I'm going to be square with you.
I've heard that.
That's another term that comes out of Freemasonry. You know, as we say in the lodge, you know, you ask the brother junior warden, how do Masons meet? Or you ask the senior warden, how do Masons meet? On the level. How do they act, brother junior warden? By the plumb. And should we ever meet, act, and part upon the square? You're squaring your actions. You're being upright and level, which creates the square.
Yeah, I think something crazy is going to have to happen for America, just America. Like, instead of taking the world, let's zone it down to just America. Something crazy is going to happen in America for us to be able to bring Americans together and say, hey, this is a standard we're going to live by. We're not going to allow weakness in the sense of like weak morals. Yeah,
Exactly.
Not a weak person or somebody that like can't do certain
Yeah,
things.
we're not
that.
talking Arnold Schwarzenegger and you know,
Right.
Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah. Weak moraled men that allow bad moraled men to take over and do
To
whatever
take
they want.
advantage of other men or other people.
Yeah. Now, have you ever experienced anything within Freemasonry that made you question reality or something spiritual, psychedelic, anything like that since you've been a part of that?
Well, you know, there are, you know, they say, well, there are circles within circles and groups within groups, and you know, there are levels that you don't know about. Well, that's kind of true, but not true. If you're more esoteric minded and you want to study, you know, hermetics and alchemy and things like that, there are groups that will meet that'll talk about these things. There are lodges that are more esoteric that will, you know, do educations on, you know, alchemy. And we say alchemy, we're not talking about, when we, you know, the first thing that comes to mind is changing lead into gold. Well, what that's really technically is you're taking yourself from being lead and you're turning yourself into gold. It's a personal transformation. You're not physically transmuting lead into gold.
I mean, if you can do that, please let me know.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if you could do that, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. You know,
These lodges
Fort
would
Knox
have-
would have
yeah.
a lot more gold, but then again, gold wouldn't have the value it does.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the lodges would be a lot
yeah,
nicer.
exactly. You know, we wouldn't be, you know, having to take up, you know, pancake breakfast to pay the light bill.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Why is the leader of this lodge driving a Lambo?
right?
Damn.
Yeah,
What does he know?
and we do have brothers that literally drive Lamborghinis.
Oh,
I
damn.
mean, I'm driving an 05 Buick that's, you know, on a
Right.
wing and a prayer.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, and that's of my own accord. It's, you know, partly
Nothing's wrong with being frugal.
well, and it's not even that. It's just, you know, I've made poor decisions over time and haven't invested well, and you know, the situations that I've come out of, you know, in life growing up, and you know, I've just never really pursued wealth. I suppose I could, but that's never really been my aim.
What's
And
been your aim?
just to be a better man, you know, to treat people well,
It's a good
treat
goal to
people-
have.
you know, treating people the way I want to be treated. You know, you see a lot of that on social media today where people will just say the most god awful things to another person, to where, you know,
Yeah.
like you call them keyboard warriors. It's like, you know, if you said that to somebody face to face, they would punch you in the face. They would punch you in the throat.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know if I showed you this, but and I say this all the time on the podcast, but I got to go to California to do that show, Jubilee. The people that were there are exactly what you're talking about. They're keyboard warriors. They'll say the most outrageous gotcha stuff in front of the camera, and then afterwards they're a completely different person.
Oh yeah.
And I cannot stand fake people.
Me either.
It drives me nuts.
You know,
but it was fun to be around those types of people that will do and say whatever they need to get likes, subscribe, you know,
see,
like
that's another thing is I am real.
Yeah.
I got no filter. And I mean, I don't mean to say things coarsely or mean or be derogative, but, you know, pardon my French, but if you're full of shit, you know, I'm going to let you know.
Fake people, I think, can sense when they're around a real person, and it makes them uneasy. And I've noticed that because I'm very blunt. I'm an acquired taste.
Yeah.
I'll tell you exactly what I'm like within. Sometimes I got to tell myself to shut the hell up.
Well,
That's
again,
why
you don't want to be rude and
Yeah.
you don't want to stoop to their level.
Right.
But, you know, if you're going to jump into a pond and it's full of alligators, I feel obligated to tell you that there's alligators in there. Yeah. You can make the decision to jump in. You know, if there's 2 glasses of liquid in front of you that are clear and I know one of them is acid, one of them is water, I feel obligated to let you know.
Inconceivable.
Well, I'm going to drink it anyway. Well, by all means, you know, you're free to make your own choice.
Right.
But I also feel that I'm obligated to let you know that that's not water.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to drink it, go for it.
Well, those types of people that are just immediately fake and you can sense it, especially when they're talking, they don't care.
They don't.
And sometimes it'll squeak out and they'll be like, hey, you might not want to do that, you know, like, but it's like they're fighting themselves.
Exactly.
From saying
that's not really
stuff
something
that makes
you probably want to do. You know, what
Seriously.
do you think the outcome of that's going to be? Did you think that far into the future?
Yeah.
Do I all the time? No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, on that show before it started, I was sweating like crazy, and I had no problem. They're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "You know, I'm just nervous. I don't want to look like a dumbass on, you know, millions of people are going to be watching this." Like, and I was just real, and it's as if it like turned. I don't know. Like I was laughing and smiling the whole time because I was.
Well, you can transmute if you understand how energy works. You can transmute that energy. You know, you can make a bad situation less bad, and I say you can make it good. It's like, you know, dare I say, my son deals with narcissism, and I mean he can be the funnest, neatest guy to be around. And in an instant, he can be the most evil person in the world. Mm. And, you know, we'd be driving to work in the morning when I had him working with me, and he was just, and I could either go with it and fight it.
Make it worse.
Exactly. Yeah. Why are you being such a jerk? Otherwise, I could concentrate on it and transmute that. And after a while, he'd look over at you and he'd be smiling again. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think that's boys in general.
Yeah,
all three of my boys. My oldest,
he's 36 years old,
but you know what I mean.
Exactly.
Like they're boys to you and I. Right. They'll always be my boys. But I think
you can do that with anybody if it's just, do you want to put forth the effort?
Yeah.
Is it worth the effort of doing it, or are you not going to be around them that long? Just let them be out there being and just go on about your business. You know. It all depends on the situation, but that's that alchemy again. You can transmute those situations. You can change the energy. Some people will burn sage or burn incense, those things they can change things. Saging a place, maybe I sound, voodooistic or.
I think most of what you've said for this podcast has been, You know, we want to be positive. We want to better ourselves. We want to do anything we can do to make you and the other people in the fraternity better men
Sure. I mean,
and better people.
what did Nietzsche say? If you stare into the abyss, you become the abyss.
It'll stare back.
The abyss will stare back at you. You know, so if you keep in that mindset, if you're on on those railroad tracks, you're going to go to that destination.
Yeah.
But if you make a conscious effort and you pull the switch, you can change it. You can change your life. And Freemasonry has really helped me do that with the issues I've dealt with. And that's one of the reasons I want to be here today is I want to shout it from the mountaintops. Not saying that Freemasonry is the only thing. I could have found it in, maybe a 12-step program or,
honestly,
any other,
it's the same vibes.
It is
12-step program. A lot of my family's in sobriety. A lot of motorcycle groups dealing with sobriety and things like that. They've dealt with addiction, anything you can think of.
Yep.
And that's most of the vibes that I'm getting from it. I don't know. It sucks because if I could find a group like this that is, pro Christianity and like you believe in your God and there's nothing that I do oath-wise or anything like that that's going to make me feel like I'm taking away from God.
Well, and you'll be
and
told
what I
that
believe in.
through your degree and in the obligation, there is nothing that will go against your God, your community, or your anything that's going to change the good parts of you for the worse. Again, we're not going to get you all the way through and then tell you now you're worshiping Satan.
Right. I think that's the big fear for a lot of people, and myself included. I would hate to feel like I've been bamboozled.
Because you hear these guys like Bill Schnoblin, Jordan Maxwell, Bill Cooper, all the things they say about, and it angers me. My buddy is a big fan of Jordan Maxwell. And I tell him, I said, dude, everything I've heard him say about Freemasonry is absolute bullshit.
Is there anything in particular that he said that really stuck with you that you think is keeping people from wanting to join Freemasonry?
It's the whole concept of they tell you this, but it's really that. They make you believe that you're doing all these good things, but in the end, they're going to tell you that,
gotcha.
That you're now snared by the devil and you've sold your soul. And it's not so. And, I'm not going to convince everybody.
Right.
But if you're objective and you really want to look into it, instead of, trusting all these guys on the internet, go knock on a lodge door.
Yeah.
Talk to the guys. And don't believe that nonsense that they're trained to lie to you. They're not.
That's getting views. That's getting clicks.
Exactly.
That's getting people to listen to them.
Truth is one of the fundamental principles of being a Freemason, is you're supposed to seek out the truth. And you're supposed to be a truthful person. I mean, how are you making yourself a good man if you believe that lying to people is an acceptable thing?
Yeah.
Do you think lying is a good Christian virtue? That's what I often tell these people that talk about this. Well, you guys do this. Do you believe that lying is a Christian virtue? What does the 9th commandment say? The 9th commandment says you should not bear false witness. Well, I'm not doing that because you do those things. No, you are doing that because we don't do those things. We don't worship Lucifer. We don't worship Satan. There is not, we don't have sex magic. Yeah, Crowley was a Mason, but he was also a French Freemason under the rite of Misra, the Memphis Misra. It's a whole different thing. To be in French Freemasonry, you don't even have to believe in a God. You don't have to believe in a higher power.
Well, that was one of the things that Bill was talking about, pertaining specifically to Freemasons doing things with children, young boys,
Exactly.
and things like that.
Because if he was in the 90th degree, he was in the French rite of Memphis Misra, where, and I mean, I don't claim to know anything, and I'm not going to try and call them out, but they're not English or American Freemasonry. Freemasonry is not an over-encompassing thing. There's French Freemasonry, there's English Freemasonry, there's German Freemasonry, there's Swedish Freemasonry, there's the Rite of Swedenborg, you know.
And these are all specific to those areas.
To those areas, yes.
Masonry is in France.
And, well, there's, we've got some Rite of Memphis in the United States.
Oh, okay. Where are those located?
I don't even know.
Gotcha.
I mean, probably more in bigger cities and stuff like that. I know the Ledroit Humane is centered right in Larkspur, Colorado. That's where their headquarters is.
And they're a part of that?
They fall under the Grand Lodge or the Grand Orient of France. Now, I'm not saying they're involved in all that. They have a 32-degree program like the English Freemasons. And I think it's very similar. I can't say for certain because I don't know.
I mean, honestly, it makes me think of motorcycle groups.
Exactly.
And gangs where it's like, oh, this is our chapter. That's our chapter. This is what we believe in. And, we come together and we do this, that, and the other.
Right.
And then you have, those are the pagans. We're not pagans. We're the Hells Angels or,
Right.
whatever other group.
But you're all bikers.
Exactly.
Now, we're all Freemasons, but English Freemasonry, there are tenets. Like there's the Constitution. You're expected to be a good and upright man.
Right.
That's one of the things they tell you when you come back in your first degree. The master tells you, by all appearances, you appear to be a good and upright man and a Mason. And I how does he say it? I command you to walk and act as such. They're not going to let you, we're not going to let each other, drift off into being some cretinous thing.
No.
We try to hold each other to a higher standard. We say we whisper good counsel in a brother's ear. You won't call him out in a lodge or in a group of people, but you'll take him to the side and you'll say, man, you might not want to do that.
Right.
What do you think you're doing with saying that or acting that way? You're speaking of a brother. If I hear something through the grapevine about a brother, I think, well, gosh,
spreading
that's not
rumors
in his
or gossip or
that's
something.
not in his character. Well, what would you do? I'm going to go to the brother.
Yeah.
Say, this is what I heard. I'm not going to pass this around, but this is what I heard. Is this true? And he can tell me yes, it is, or no, it isn't, and explain himself. Because again, there's three sides to every story.
Do you guys kick out brothers of?
They can
fraternity?
be. When we talk about these, like I said, the penalties of having your throat cut across, your belly torn open, those are all symbolic. None of that's going to happen. But if you continue to be immoral or act in an unmasonic way,
Lying.
you will be thrown out. You will be asked to leave. You'll be kicked out. That's it. We're not going to, go cut your tongue out and put it in the rough sands of the sea. We're not going to, open your bowels and put them where the vultures can take them. And, that's never happened and never will happen.
Do you think there's groups of the Freemasonry that are, the maniacal Illuminati, deep state kind of thing? No?
No. I had someone tell me the other day, well, there are black Freemasons. And I said, well, of course they are. They're Prince Hall. She says, I don't mean race, you dummy, you stupid. I'm talking, dark, bad. And I'm like, no, there aren't. Again, we're all human. We're all men first. And we're going to do maybe some things that aren't necessarily on the up and up. But as Freemasons in aggregate, No.
Well, that's why I'm curious, because it does make me think of motorcycle clubs. You got the Mongols, the Hells Angels, the Pagans, like all these big bad motorcycle groups, and then you got like
The Widow's Sons.
TTMC, Third Tradition Motorcycle Club of Sobriety. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They're a sober riding group. Like, I think of these regular lodges as sober riding motorcycle clubs, and then like, is there a, you know, deep state
No.
Hell's Angels version of
Now,
Freemasonry?
there might be guys who are Freemasons that step out and be that way.
Right.
I can't speak for
Right.
every man, but as a whole, no. It's just when you understand and you're part of a group of people that believe being a certain way, I think it would bother your conscience to be like that.
Especially if you're trying to live up to that standard that
Right.
you and your brothers
If you're
are
on the
setting.
level and you're on the plumb,
Yeah.
and you're treating people squarely, you know, it's just the tenets of the craft just don't permit that type of concept. So, you know, and the Illuminati existed for 9 years. You know, it started in 1776 and was over by 1785.
I
they
heard
had less
Jay-Z. Jay-Z was in the Illuminati. What are you
Oh yeah,
talking
everyone
about?
that does this, you know, that's, you know, now there are groups that call themselves the Illuminati today, yes, but the actual Bavarian Illuminati, started by Adam Weishaupt, lasted for about 9 years. They had less than 2,000 members, and again, the majority of it was the German Enlightenment. They were trying to take, you know, to get an education, you had to go through a Jesuit-run college. And so music and the arts and those things were exclusively to those people that could do that. And other people weren't allowed to. And he thought that was wrong. Now, I'm not aggrandizing other things that they did or said or their concepts, but that was the basic tenets of you know, their original name was the Perfectibilists.
The Freemasons' original name?
No, the Illuminati.
Oh, I gotcha.
And I mean, okay, what does Illuminati mean? What does illuminate mean?
Lighting.
To be more light, to see more light, to be better. You know, you've got other groups that can, you know, the Church of Satan or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you ask any Satanists, they'll be like, well, in the Bible that we have, like, there's nothing about doing bad, or there's nothing about, like, actually,
Exactly. And again, I don't know that much about him.
Beelzebub was a pretty good guy.
Right.
Like,
You know,
like,
I'm not going to, you know, comment one way or the other on what
Right,
they
because-
do or say, because I don't know. I don't.
I can respect that more than anything else.
As long as
being
you-
able to say, I don't know.
Exactly.
Jeez. I forgot I got a nephew's birthday. I forgot I set an alarm.
Oh, yeah, and the
To-
alarms will go
to
past the silent on your phone.
Yeah, I said I was going to text him basically in the next 10 minutes, because he was born in 10 minutes on that day. So
Right
so
on.
I set like a little alarm to make
Well,
sure I
when that
shot him a
comes, just
text.
Take the time and
Oh yeah. Well, I'll edit it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I could keep it in there and
yeah,
we'll be
absolutely.
like, hey,
I mean,
shout out.
That's important. That's important in your life.
Yeah.
That's an important thing, and I wouldn't want you, you know, to negate that for me or for this podcast, because that's wrong. You know, that's important to you. That's important to him.
Yeah.
Which makes it important to me.
Yeah. I love that kid to death.
Absolutely.
And he's a big
By
part of my
all
son's.
means, take the time and wish him happy birthday.
Oh yeah. I'll give him a shout out on here. too.
Absolutely.
But to keep going with what we were saying, I can respect that more than anything else. You don't know.
I don't know,
I
and
don't
I'm not
know.
going to. I can only surmise.
At the end of the day, we could die right now and come to find out the devil has been God the entire time, and we've been doing it. We've had it all backwards. 'Cause
Exactly.
we were lied to hundreds of thousands of years ago. Like
Exactly.
there's so much that we don't know because our knowledge has been, it's like someone took an Etch-a-Sketch and just got rid of our history.
Yep.
The Library of Alexandria, like all these
The
things.
Vatican,
You know,
archives under the Vatican.
What do they know that they've kept from us? And,
Right.
and I think people that are able to say I don't know have so much more respect in my
Yeah,
life
I mean, how can
than
I,
anything else.
How can I say I mean, I can know you, but do I know you?
Exactly. I could be a piece of shit.
Do I know how
Yeah.
you treat your family or your wife?
Yeah.
Only the interface I get with you when we're together, and of course, everyone's gonna put on a good face.
Yeah.
You close the door and you turn around, you slap the shit out of her. Well, why did you say that in front of him? Or why weren't you like this? Or why didn't you have the coffee ready? Or dinner was late. I'm not gonna know that.
Right.
Though that's your private life. I can
I'll wait till you leave.
Exactly. Please do.
No. Is there anything that you wish Freemasonry would do differently, and what could Freemasonry do to get more people to join, in your opinion?
I think we need to get back out in the public eye. I've talked to people that are like, man, I didn't realize Freemasonry still existed anymore, which I kind of the thought you had when we first talked about it.
That's exactly what I knew it
Freemasonry.
existed, but it to me, and most people in my generation are looking at it like the VFW or something.
Right.
Like you're not
Exactly.
getting the word out there. I'm a veteran.
And that's our fault. That's why probably by the time this airs, maybe a little late, but our Grand Lodge is going to perform a cornerstone ceremony for our lodge on the 30th of July. And the cornerstone ceremony is open to the public. And it's virtually, I can't say for certain, but it's virtually the exact same ceremony that Washington performed when they set the cornerstone for the Capitol.
Huh.
It is a fascinating, beautiful ceremony. If you have a chance to come, I encourage you to come and invite any and everybody you want, because you may not see another one again.
And when is it again?
The 30th of July at 10 a.m.
And where at?
at our lodge in Greeley.
Got it.
2532 9th Avenue, Greeley, Colorado.
To the second part of the question, is there anything you think they could do differently to bring in more public
exposure? You know, we've, like I said earlier, we've kind of secret societied ourselves out of a fraternity. We need to, discuss these things with people. People have, these ideas of what Freemasons are or what they were. Again, there's nothing in our obligation that says you can't discuss these things. Again, there's nothing I'm going to tell you that I can be chastised for doing wrong or sharing a secret that I can't share, because the ones I can't share, like I said, I'm not going to tell you the modes of recognition. I'm not going to tell you what the passwords are. I'm not going to tell you what the handshakes are. If you really want to know, you're going to go to the internet and you're going to find them. But I took an obligation that said that I won't do that. And, I told that to my buddy Don. Shout out to Don. I told him specifically, I respect you as a brother, as a friend, that I would never ask you to violate an obligation. But, if I'm on to something, let me know. If I'm wrong, let me know. But, I'm not ever expecting you to tell me anything that you're not supposed to. I would never ask that of another man. Something to violate something that he himself obligated himself, took an oath, or promised somebody he would or wouldn't do. I would never put a man in that position to do something like that. Nor will I put myself in the position. But again, there's virtually little that I can't tell you.
Right.
And we need to quit this. Well, I can't tell you because it's secret. They're going to find it. And likely they're going to go to guys like Bill Schnoblin, and what he's going to tell them is all nonsense.
Right.
And it's going to give you a wrong impression of what Freemasonry is. And I'm going to call out Bill Schnoblin. I'm going to call out, Bill Cooper and Jordan Maxwell. They're both dead now. But if you're listening to those guys, do some more objective research, because what they're telling you is not true. There's a kernel of truth in all the things that they say.
Right.
But
to give it that hook where it sounds like it's kind of right, but
exactly, to
like,
base enough of it in the truth so that they're not really wrong, but they're still not giving you the right information.
Yeah.
Like Bill, he'll talk a lot about it, but he'll tell you that, to become a hardcore Satanist, I had to become a Freemason first. What? We have nothing to do with that. I mean, we are the antithesis of that. It's the Albert Pike quote that we worship Lucifer. That's not what it says. If you read the whole paragraph, you read the first sentence, it tells you actually the exact opposite of that. And there's nowhere in there that says we worship Lucifer. What he's doing is he's questioning that what a lot of people consider Lucifer as the devil or Satan. Is he the bright morning star? Is he the bringer of light? Funny name for the angel of darkness or whatever he says. But nowhere in there does he say we worship or regard Lucifer. He says we despise it. This is to aspires to God alone and despises all the pomps and works of Lucifer. Read the whole paragraph. Don't take an 861-page book, take one sentence out of that book, and tell me what he's saying. You didn't read the book. You just didn't.
Cherry-picked, kind of.
You cherry-picked one sentence out of an 861-page book. That if you actually read the book, I encourage everybody to read that book. I encourage everybody to read at minimum. Read or listen. You can get it on YouTube. Morals and Dogma. Listen to the first 3 degrees of the first 3 chapters. You'll listen to that and you'll think, man, they ought to be teaching this stuff in school. And then you'll think, oh, now I know why they don't teach this stuff in school. They don't want you to know this stuff. They don't want you to know how mankind works.
Well, if you teach people how mankind works, then people
you
might
can't
actually
be controlled
exactly.
by those Illuminati and the deep state and the dark side. That's why people, read it. I mean, what harm can it do you? It's not going to, snare you into worshiping the devil. He's very wordy. It's written in a lot of it's archaic. I mean, it was written in the 1800s. And if you read the preface or the preface, however that's pronounced, he tells you that he didn't write it all. He took a lot of other people's information. A lot of it was from Eliphas Levi, and put it together. So it's not like all of this was his writing. He just put it into a book.
Right.
So, give the man an honest turn. He was a Confederate general. Well, he believed in the Confederacy. He believed in states' rights. He was not a pro-slavery person. I mean, curiously enough, he was very close friends with Horace Greeley, who Greeley, Colorado was named after. And Horace Greeley was a radical abolitionist. Matter of fact, it's Horace Greeley that convinced Abraham Lincoln to write the Emancipation Proclamation, to which he actually sent it to Greeley, who was a newspaper man, and an editor, and he proofread it and sent it back to Lincoln.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Horace Greeley started Albert Pike in his first newspaper. He found Albert Pike teaching elementary school. We're talking a man he's a bear of a man, huge man, but he was a gentle giant. You know, his time in the Civil War, he was out here in the West dealing with the Native Americans. He was self-taught. He applied to Harvard, and Harvard said, "Well, you got to pay for your first 2 years up front, or you can't come." He said, "I can't do that." Then after he, became famous and was a learned man, they said, "Well, we want to give you an honorary degree." He said, "You didn't want me then." Basically,
Kick
F
rocks.
you, kick rocks. I don't want anything to do with you now. You just want to know me because I'm famous.
Right.
And, his statue in Washington, they said, well, it's the only Confederate general statue in Washington. His statue wasn't of a Confederate general. His statue wasn't as a Freemason. He had a book under his arm. He was an attorney. He wrote a lot of legislation and treaties for the Native Americans. They loved that man. They took him on hunting parties. Matter of fact, it was on a hunting party that they took him on that there's a story about the Albert Pike death hoax. Someone named Albert, a name that was similar to Pike, died, and it got out that Albert Pike died, and everyone was mourning, and he actually attended his own wake. It's a funny story.
Hey guys,
Yeah, exactly.
glad you all showed up.
And he just had that sense of humor,
right.
and but the legislation and the treaties that he wrote for the Native Americans are the only treaties and agreements the United States government has agreed to that have never once been broken.
I didn't know that.
They have virtually broken every treaty with every country, every group of people that have ever written, except for the ones that Albert Pike drew up, have never been broken.
Why do you think that is?
Could be the way that he worded it. I mean, I can't say for sure.
That gave it more structure?
It gave it more structure and made it more sound, made it fair, to where both sides felt that they got an even deal or got the better side of the deal.
Right. It's like this whole thing sucks, but at least this is as good as we can get.
Right, exactly.
The deal to be.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, when they took that statue down, if he had known there was a statue of him in Washington, D.C., he would have cringed to begin with. He would have never wanted that. He never looked or sought for fame. He was, he was very learned. I mean, the man taught autodidactic. He taught himself 16 languages that he could read, translate, read and write.
Jeez.
I mean, he was a brilliant man, all self-taught.
That sucks. All it takes is one part of history in somebody's life for people to be like, he was a part of this.
He was in the Battle of Pea Ridge where the Native Americans that were working with him, they scalped a bunch of people, and he was tried for that, but he was found innocent. But people still hold these things against him, and it's very sad. And as Masons, we're taught that you never say anything bad about a person after they've died. For one, they can't defend themselves. And for Masons particularly Masons, to speak out against Pike, or I heard a brother one day said, well, if we could just get past the teachings of Pike, we would be better off. Well, what did he teach that was so bad? Are you caught up in that whole Luciferian thing because you haven't read Morals and Dogma? I've heard guys, after you go through the 32nd degree, when you get your hat, you get a copy of Morals and Dogma. Guys just, I just put that on the shelf. You'll never read that. I'm like, no, read it. You'll love it. It can be difficult to get through. And if you need help, listen to it on audiobook.
Yeah, audiobooks are definitely the way to go.
And to begin with, it was never meant to be individually read, so to speak. It was meant to be given in lectures. It was meant for someone to be reading it to you. You get a whole different perspective on things when they're read to you as you read it for yourself. And so when you listen to it, like I said, you can go to YouTube right now and look up Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike, and it'll have all 32 degrees.
Nice.
And it's word for word what's in the book. It's not like it's, they're going to hoodwink you or, they're going to lie to you because Freemasons are taught to lie, which is all nonsense. And I wish people would stop thinking that, because it's not true. Disparaging good men, it's really sad, and I can speak for the majority of Freemasons I know. They're really good men.
I think if we get more of you guys to be more vocal,
well, and
do
we need to
things
get
like
back out
this.
in the community.
Yeah, I think that would make a gigantic difference.
And that's why really when you offered me to do this, I'm like, yes, I want to preach it from the mountaintops.
I appreciate you coming on here.
I can't come to any one of you and say, hey, do you want to be a Freemason? I can't do that. But I will give you the open to where you can contact Joe through this, or we can put out information.
Yeah, if you want to put you already put the address of the Greeley Lodge. Yeah.
If you're interested, contact a local lodge near you. You can get on the internet. You can contact the Grand Lodge in your state. Even if you don't want to be a Freemason, if you want to talk to and find out, go and talk to them. They will talk to you.
I imagine people
They will
leave
be
comments.
excited to talk to you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're interested? Well, let me tell you. Again, they're not going to tell you the quote unquote secrets, but they will tell you what it's truly about. And trust me, I assure you, they're not going to lie to you. They're not going to puff you up. They're not going to tell you that it's something that it's not. Trust what they have to say. And if you don't, go to various different lodges. In Colorado, there are over 100 lodges. Most communities have a lodge. There's one in Greeley. There's one in Loveland. There's one in Fort Collins. There used to be one in Berthoud, but the one in Berthoud and Loveland and Estes Park combined. There's one in Lafayette. There's one in Fort Lupton. There's one in Brighton. There's one in Aurora. There's one in Littleton, and they're all over in your state. Just go on the internet, type in Masonic lodges near me, and it'll give you the contact information. Even if I don't know you, if you're doing the work, I give you props. Because with all the conspiracies and the propaganda out, sometimes it can be overwhelming when you want to talk to people about Freemasonry. And again, I'm not trying to criticize, but a lot of the Christian churches just have a penchant for it. Billy Graham, Billy Sunday, Ralph Stanley, these men were all men of God, and they were all Freemasons. There is nothing in Freemasonry that conflicts with Christianity or the Bible.
Christianity in general right now is conflicting with itself.
Well, exactly.
It's
there,
a mess.
There are how many denominations of the Christian church? Then there's the Catholic Church. Then there's the Jewish faith, and then there's the Mormons, and there's the Scientologists, and there's the Seventh-day Adventists. And
well, I'm just saying
Jehovah's Witnesses.
They can't really talk too much smack about Freemasonry if they can't even get their own shit together.
Well, exactly.
So that would be the only point I would make.
When they're finding churches where the pastors are getting convicted of pedophilia.
Ugh.
Come on.
Yeah.
You can't. You have no moral high ground to tell me I'm doing the wrong thing when you're not doing the right thing.
Right.
And again, there will be no Freemason that'll ever lie to you. Let me see what else if we've covered. The basics.
I think we hit the nail on the head on a lot of stuff.
I think we did.
Yeah, because I was going through my questions and stuff, and pretty much the first half I had already hit
what Freemasonry is, what it isn't, the history. How Freemasonry can provide structure. The appendant bodies, there's a Scottish Rite, when we have the language clinic, the The York Rite, they have the vision clinics. The Shriners have hospitals. We've got the youth groups, Demolay for boys, Job's Daughters and Rainbows for girls. There's OES, the Order of the Eastern Star, for men and women. There are other side bodies. There's Amaranth. There's White Shrine. There are other, allied Masonic degrees. Tall Cedars of Lebanon. But those are the basics. Maybe some, I had famous Freemasons. And on the back here, Eddie Arnold, Roy Acuff, Edwin Buzz Aldrin, who was actually raised as a Master Mason at L.N. Greenleaf Lodge in Denver. And, a lot of groups have challenge coins. So a lot of these lodges have challenge coins. And the L.N. Greenleaf Lodge challenge coins is one of the most sought-after challenge coins in Colorado Freemasons. On the front, it's got L.N. Greenleaf, who wrote Lodge Over Simpkins Store. It's a poem about a fictitious lodge, which there's now a lodge in South Park that you can visit. It's called the Lodge Over Simpkins Store. On the back of the challenge coin is Buzz Aldrin on the moon.
Did he actually confirm that he was on the moon?
Well, yeah, we can. That's a discussion.
That's a whole
for
nother
another
episode.
time.
Yeah.
Gene Autry, Beethoven, Irving Berlin, Simone Bolivar, Gustav Borglum, Ernest Borgnine, Omar Bradley, Richard Byrd, DeWitt Clinton, Ty Cobb, George McCohan, Davy Crockett, Norm Crosby, Cecil B. DeMille, Jack Dempsey, Jimmy Doolittle, Duke Ellington, Sir Alexander Fleming, Gerald Ford, who was actually the last of the U.S. presidents to have been a Freemason until now. Biden was made a Mason on sight. Henry Ford, Benjamin Franklin, Clark Gable, John Glenn, Arthur Godfrey, Barry Goldwater, John Hancock, Harry Hirschfield, Harry Houdini, Sam Houston, Hubert Humphrey, Burl Ives, Andrew Jackson, Al Jolson.
Andrew Jackson, that's one to brag about. Like the man that defeated the bank.
But he's also known for the Trail of Tears and,
No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. So we can
History's fun.
Yes. Al Jolson, John Paul Jones, Jack Kemp, Rudyard Kipling. One of the best movies, A Man Who Would Be King, was, I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah, where he's got like a really big stutter or a speech impediment.
No, The Man Who Would Be King is with Sean Connery and Michael
Douglas?
No, English. Michael Caine. And
I'll have to look it up.
They go to this village that's up through the. I can't even remember the full story now because of the memory.
I'll look it up afterwards.
But it was written by Rudyard Kipling. Marquis de Lafayette. Marquis de Lafayette was, and there's actually a Marquis de Lafayette Lodge in Denver, and they have in the display case and Freemasons wear an apron. It's reminiscent of the ancient stonemasons that wore aprons to protect their clothes. And there is an actual, one of Marquis de Lafayette's aprons is actually on display there. Marquis de Lafayette spent his inheritance helping George Washington start this country.
Hell yeah.
Very fundamental.
Hats off to both of them.
Fiorello LaGuardia, Lindbergh, MacArthur, George C. Marshall, Thurgood Marshall, Charles W. Mayo, William McKinley, James Lauritz Melchior, James Monroe, Mozart, Arnold Palmer, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, another profound Christian preacher, Arnold Palmer, J.C. Penney, Pershing, Edwin Rickenbacker, Will Rogers, Roosevelt, both Theodore and Franklin, Red Skelton, John Philip Sousa, Danny Thomas, who actually started St. Jude's because the Shriners Hospital already existed. So he started St. Jude's for children with cancer, childhood cancer. Lowell Thomas, Harry Truman, George Washington, Thomas Watson, and John Wayne. Matter of fact, one of the brothers in the lodge in Fort Collins, their last name is Morrison. And if you didn't know, John Wayne's real name was Marion Morrison. They're related to John Wayne.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Damn.
So,
And where can people get those pamphlets? At the lodge?
Some lodges have them. I'll leave you this one.
Thank you.
It's just who are the Masons? What is Freemasonry? Where did Freemasonry begin? No one really knows just how old Freemasonry is, like we said. What do Freemasons do? Several Masonic principles. Faith must be the center of our lives. All men and women are the children of God. No one has the right to tell another person what he or she must think or believe. Each person has a responsibility to be a good citizen obeying the law. It is important to work to make a world a better place for all. Honor, integrity are the keys to a meaningful life. What is the Masonic Lodge? Who can qualify to join? Applicants must be good men of good character who believe in a supreme being. To become a Mason, one must petition a particular lodge. The Master of the Lodge appoints a committee to visit the applicant prior to the lodge balloting upon his petition. So who are the Masons? Masons are men of good character who strive to improve themselves and make the world a better place. They belong to the oldest, most honorable fraternity known to man. If you think you may be interested in becoming a member, you can begin by contacting a lodge in your area or speaking to a Mason.
Hell yeah.
To be one, ask one. Men of character and integrity, join the Masons.
Well, man, I really do appreciate you taking the time to come out here and giving your opinions and your life experiences that have led you to where you're at today, that have helped you become a better person yourself, and you going out of your way to try and help other men become better.
Well, again, for what it's done for me, I just want to shout it from the mountaintops, as again, like I said. I do want to give a shout out to Christopher Hodap, who's the author of this book, Freemasons for Dummies. If you want more information, more in depth, I mean, he really gets into it. Much makes a Grand Lodge grand, the Grand Master, the Senior Warden, the Worshipful Master, who's in charge, enduring the rule of dictators.
And they can get that on Amazon?
You can get it on Amazon. You might be able to check it out at the library. Any place, I'm sure any of your bookstores can order it for you. I highly recommend it. I've read it, and it's spot on. You know, he's not going to, I actually got to meet him about 2 weeks ago in Denver. He did a presentation and brought the books. And unfortunately, Amazon, when they sent the books, the delivery driver couldn't figure out how to get into the consistory building downtown Denver.
Oh, no.
So they sent the books back. So he had about 4 of these books, and I grabbed one up real quick. And, he actually signed the book to Brother Jason.
That's awesome.
And it's really, as all the Dummies books are, they're written to where you can really understand them. He's got a hell of a sense of humor. And I highly recommend it because
it gives you a better idea of what Freemasonry is.
Exactly.
Huh.
I'll
there's definitely have to look into that.
Better book about Freemasonry than this that I've read. That's more descriptive and covers all the bases, all the appendant bodies, even like I said, the D. Malay and the Job's Daughters, and even the obscure appendant bodies. This is the book. Learn what goes on in a Masonic meeting, gain insight into Masonic ceremonies and symbols, discover the origins and myths of Freemasonry.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you. I will be seeing you this Saturday at Pam Vets.
Yes.
I'm going to be bringing the father-in-law out there. He's a Navy vet himself. And
oh, awesome.
I think one of my sons is wanting to go as well. because I keep talking about it to pretty much every vet that I'm meeting. Like,
Absolutely.
dude, it's like hundreds of veterans all in one place at a Golden Corral. You can't beat it. So
Right? Absolutely.
I look forward to seeing you this
And
weekend.
they're really a neat group of guys.
Oh yeah.
You know, I don't know if your statue is here. I just got mine a couple weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
And you know, they really honor each other as veterans. They support each other. You know, we're helping to get the word out about different projects and things that are, you know, like Brian's Battle Buddy program, and you know, I think that Freemasonry can really help the veterans. A lot of this information can be disseminated through the lodges, and you know, I think it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the vet. It's a win for the lodges. It's a win for the craft.
I think as long as we don't have gatekeeping and we go out of our way to help each
Absolutely.
group, I think we could raise all, you know, I can't remember that saying,
A rising tide raises all boats.
exactly.
I agree. And again, we do have another group called the Sojourners, which are for former military members, veterans, and which I'm going to actually become a member of next Wednesday. It's called the National Sojourners. They work with the ROTCs and youth groups and help fund them and get them going. And
I'll have to get you in contact with one of the other guys we know that has, I think it's called the Young Marines or something
Sure.
along those lines. But he does work with the youth as far as like military stuff goes, and he loves it.
we got, you know, groups out of Cheyenne. One of our brothers is, you know, they have awards and scholarships. And that's another thing we do is each lodge has a scholarship fund. You can petition the lodges. You don't have to be a Mason. You don't have to be a family of a Mason. If you're going to a college nearby one of the lodges, go talk to them. And, you know, if you put it to them and you'll write an essay and they'll read your essay. And if they find you're worthy of a scholarship, they'll help you with a scholarship.
Oh, nice.
I mean, you know, we're trying to make the world a better place. So
Are they doing scholarships for veterans or anything like that?
Not specifically, but if you're in college and
You should already be using your GI Bill and voc rehab
right.
and all that other stuff. But
like one of our brothers, his daughter petitioned us for a scholarship. She wants to be a nurse.
Nice.
And, you know, I was on the investigation committee. I already knew her. I had done some work in his house, you know, during the lockdown. I helped him remodel his kitchen. So this is a brother who has 6 daughters.
jeez.
Yeah, shout out to Barrett and his lovely wife, Marie, and the 6 daughters.
He must have done something bad in a previous life.
Yeah, karma is
6
really
daughters.
6 daughters. I mean, I've got 1 daughter and 1 son, and that's all I can handle. And they're all well adjusted. I mean, they're great kids. You know, they're a wonderful family. So, and
Anybody else you want to give a shout out to before we go? We're coming up on almost 3 hours.
really,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
oh my goodness!
Yeah.
I thought we'd be done in about an hour and a
right.
half. Here we
I
are,
mean,
3
it's a
hours
good
later.
conversation. It's a topic that I think a lot of people are curious about, and I'm really curious to see how many people, you know, leave comments,
Well, sure.
watch the episode, look it up, because a lot of it's like key words that you put in for the video. So I'm wondering how many people
And,
are.
you know, if you have questions, the square and compasses, which are our symbol, you know, the square and compasses, the G stands for God or geometry, which is only used in American lodges. In Europe and other places, they'll have a triangle with a yod in it, which is the first letter in the name of God. Sometimes you won't see it at all. But those are the basics. Now, on my hat, you'll see that I've got the rocker underneath. That represents being a past master. That means I've served 1 year already as a master of a Blue Lodge. And I'm actually the master again, so. But
Do you get another one under it?
no.
No.
What
What happens after multiple years?
You just get more experience. You get more gray hair.
Hell yeah. Become more wise.
You do by osmosis. You know.
Well, I really appreciate you coming out here.
And
It's
Joe,
being able to take the
you
time
don't
to
know
do
how
this.
much I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share this. You know, again, like I say, and not to be redundant, I want to shout it from the mountaintops because it has really helped me a lot in my life. And, you know, if, you know, having the PTSD and stuff, you know, you tend to isolate, and, you know, you get in public and you know, can tend to have panic attacks or agoraphobia. But if what's really neat is, see, I travel to a lot of different lodges. I visit a lot of lodges. And when you walk into a lodge and 70 or 80% of the people there know you by name, walk up to you, shake your hand, and give you a hug. Hey, it's good to see you. It's a good feeling. When you go visit the Grand Lodge and 80% of the people, most of the people on the eastern slope, on the Front Range, know you. I mean, it's a neat thing. And if you err and say something stupid, they're not going to beat you up. They're not going to beat you down. Someone might pull you aside, like I said, and they're going to whisper good counsel in your ear. And they say, man, that was a really dumb thing to say. Why,
Right.
you know, you might consider doing this instead, or, you know, something like that. So it's a very, if you're trying to re-socialize, which I'm trying to do, it's a very controlled social environment that you can really start to get back out and start meeting people, you know, genuine people that when they say it's good to see you, they're
They
not
mean
just
it.
blowing smoke.
Yeah.
They really mean it. You know, I just went through 2 of the 3 degrees for the York Rite. So by the time this airs, next on the 12th, I'll go through the Commandery degrees, and I'll be a full Knight Templar. And
Congratulations.
thank you.
I'll definitely try and get it done before then.
Yeah.
I got to edit all this myself, so.
And that's, yeah.
And 3 hours is a very long amount of time to edit.
Right. And hopefully there's not a whole lot of it to edit out, but
Oh, yeah, no. It's mostly like doing switch cuts and stuff, so.
yeah.
But thank you again.
And again,
I have to pee so bad.
I can relate. I'm getting to that age when you got to pee, you got to pee.
I really do appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Yes.
We will be out there, and I'll have some of the family with me.
Awesome.
So I'll see you then, man.
All right, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.